We are live.
Welcome to Post Wrestling's Best of 2018 show. I'm John Pollock, but given that the man is here, I want to start this show with the only words that can start this show. Davie, we give you the honors.
To Post Wrestling's Best.
Sorry.
Davie, we give you the honors.
To Post Wrestling's Best.
Sorry. I always forget to mute my own computer.
Davie, can you give us an official?
Hello.
There we go.
Hello.
Davie, Portman, and Braden Herrington are here in the house at Post Office West. And of course, Wai Ting, where for the next umpteen hours, we are going to go through all of our best of 2018 picks and much to come. So welcome, everyone. If you are watching live,
Hello.
welcome. And if you are listening on Friday or at a later date, welcome as well.
Hello as well.
Happy holidays, everybody. Friday or at a later date, welcome as well.
Hello as well.
Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas indeed. It is the season.
Tis the season to be jolly.
We thought we should, give out the Christmas.
It's the best of the year.
Of course,
We can't
of
just
course.
do this in normal clothing.
Of course.
This is a
There
bonus.
you go.
Oh my goodness. Look at this.
Wow.
There you go,
It's
Braden.
Christmas
Thank
time.
you so much. This is perfect.
I'm gonna take my New Japan hat off and put on a Santa hat.
Wow.
That's
There we
almost
go.
blasphemy, but
And we also have this that maybe we could celebrate with at the end of the show.
Yes.
Oh boy.
I don't know.
Yes.
Can that go there?
There we go.
it can definitely
All
go
the
there.
other video people, like, look at Davie's finest
Oh,
hair.
it's the Wine Rack's finest.
Crisp and fresh.
Yeah.
I think this is great for best of, but what are we drinking for worst of? That's a better question.
Probably like
The punch from our Halloween
Oh yeah,
party.
the leftover punch.
the punch in the gut.
Oh, I don't think we'll be wanting to drink that day at all.
Well, guys, welcome to the panel. Thank you for enduring this process of list making. Braden, going through this process, what was the amount of work that went into your best of list? Was this an arduous trial, or did a lot of these come easy for you?
This is the easy show. This is the easy show to prepare for, because you just go through the stuff that you actually liked. You go through your favorite wrestlers and their matches, all the stuff. If you're a wrestling fan like me, you just go back and look at all the stuff you actually enjoyed and all the stuff where you popped or you marked hard for. This was super easy and great. The past week, I knew I had the categories. I just went through them. Some of them came to me right away. And anytime I had to think of something different, I would go back and watch. It was a lot of fun. 2018, my favorite year of professional wrestling.
It usually takes me a long time to put these lists together, and this is definitely the latest.
Favorite year of professional wrestling.
It usually takes me a long time to put these lists together, and this is definitely the latest I left. I didn't finish my list till today.
Whoa.
Davie, being a rookie to this process, how
Right.
did you
This
find
is your
it?
debut.
It is, yeah. Some of them came very easily. If you listen to our show, you know some of my answers to this already. But yeah, a lot were a lot trickier. Pretty much for the last few days, all I keep getting from Braden is, "Yo, what's your best podcast?"
Today-
I'm like, you'll find out.
Today, Braden tweeted out to everybody, "What's everyone's match of the year?"
I had to, fish it out there. I had to see what was going on.
But I'm pretty sure there's going to be stuff that comes up that I'm like, "Oh, damn, how did I forget about that one?"
Right. My trick is let John go first and then just say what he says. That's my trick, Dave.
Well, maybe I should go last then. Wai, you are a very, very busy man. The amount of hours that you sleep, I don't even know if they equal double digits most weeks. But tell us what this process was like for you.
It's something I've been thinking about all year, but like I know in the past, like people like you would like keep lists on hand the entire year.
I didn't do that this year, and it was
Whoa,
really hard
man.
at the end of it. I learned after a few years of how hard it was at the end, like matches of the year. I started keeping, like, throughout the year, I'd write down stuff like that. And this year I didn't do any of that, and I really paid for it.
Starting January 1st, I know I am starting up a notepad just to write all of these categories down, because it was really difficult. It took me basically a whole evening to kind of come up with a lot of my choices.
Now, you're listening to four voices, and you'll be hearing all of our picks, but we have a fifth panel member. It's been a big week for the audience. Not only are you the authority, but you are also the fifth panel member, because we put out our survey earlier this month and everyone got to vote, and the results are in. So we will be chatting about all of our picks, and then we will get the listeners' picks in all of the categories. And I want to give a big thank you right off the bat to Chris Engler, the man who compiled all of the stats in record time.
That's crazy.
Thank you very much. So without further ado, the way we are going to do this, we are going to start at the bottom of our list and then move our way up to the most prestigious awards. So our first category, and we changed them up a bit this year. So there's some returning favorites and some brand new ones. Our first category is Best Interview on a Pod, and some brand new ones. Our first category is Best Interview on a Podcast, YouTube, or other media outlet. And I'll start. We'll mix up the order throughout this. My pick was Kenny Omega on Talk is Jericho right after Wrestle Kingdom. And what I enjoyed so much about this interview was that it was a deconstruction of their match and just the two kind of getting into their heads of everything. Like they pretty much went through the match of why they did things, how stuff on the undercard influenced certain things that they weren't expecting. And I just thought it was it was also such a quick turnaround for the match. I feel this was only a few weeks after, so it was fresh in everyone's mind and just a really unique idea, which I find Jericho does quite a lot on his podcast, coming up with different angles than just doing standard interviews. So that was my pick. Let's go to Davie.
I picked exactly the same.
Oh, wow.
I thought that show was really interesting. There was a bit, basically something Marty Scurll did in that 4-way kind of screwed up the Jericho match.
Osprey.
Yeah.
He does a moonsault, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's the Bucks go up to Omega and are like, hey, they're doing that thing you're going to do. So I think that's why they then did the stomp onto the table.
Right.
And it's all these little things that you don't normally ever hear about. So that was super interesting for me.
I'll go ahead. I don't listen to a lot of interviews, but I did actually listen to that because I'll go ahead. I don't listen to a lot of interviews, but I did actually listen to that because, you know, I'm obsessed with that. But I'm going to say not just one interview, but I'm going to just pick a person that gets interviewed. And every time he does, I have to watch it. And it's outside of wrestling, kind of. It's John Cena. He's been doing a lot of promotion for Bumblebee. And John Cena is a weird dude. Why are you always wearing a suit? Bumblebee. And John Cena is a weird dude. Why are you always wearing a suit? I watched him do an interview. I think it was like Good Morning America or like at a Comic-Con. And he wore a suit and the Bumblebee mask. And I just don't. Every time I have to watch him, it's insane. So I'm picking that.
He's a really well-dressed individual.
Why is he always in? He's huge. He just looks big people in suits.
That's what they call being on brand.
I guess.
At his level.
He's corporate now.
Something's odd about him. Like
his sense of humor is very interesting.
Yeah,
and it's not fully what he lets on either, you know, on his wrestling persona or anything else.
I find him very interesting as a human. Like he can play the piano. That thing that came out, like Chinese. Yeah, like he's weird.
When do you have the time to do all that? Like I don't have the time to compile this list,
and he looks
I
like
just
that.
work in a bar.
It's like funny you asked that because like he did a video for GQ or something where he talks about his daily routine, and it starts at something ridiculous like 5 a.m. And then he gets his workouts in, he practices Chinese, he practices piano, he does, you know, his whatever wrestling related tasks are.
Crazy.
And then he goes to sleep at like maybe 2. Okay, so he'll get like 3 hours of sleep, and then the day starts again. Yeah.
So literally, like every time he comes on TV, I have, especially him and Jimmy Fallon, it's just so weird dynamic. So I picked that.
Gotcha.
And Wai.
You know, I thought it was about to be our first clean sweep of the day because I also thought Talk is Jericho with Kenny Omega was probably my interview of the year. To be honest with you, it was a little bit tough to figure this one out because I don't know how many interviews really stood out to me. You know, the other one, honestly, I could think of was The Undertaker on that Ed Young interview, and it was that one was more bizarre than anything I would say. You know,
there was the novelty of it being the Undertaker being interviewed. I didn't know if it was that great of an interview. The post wrestling listeners gave us a tie between Kenny Omega on Talk is Jericho and Undertaker being interviewed by Ed Young with 7.3% of the votes. But there were a number of interviews throughout that got votes.
What are some other ones?
Some other ones included The Elite on Talk is Jericho, Jake Roberts' recent appearance on Joe Rogan, the Young Bucks and Cody on Talk is Jericho, a few post ones with Morrow when he was on with us, when Arda was on with us, a vote for Dr. Courtney Radge from our Crown Jewel post show.
Lovely, thank you.
A vote for Dr. Courtney Radge from our Crown Jewel post show.
Lovely, thank you.
Those were some of the the ones receiving votes. All right, let us move on to best podcast that is not part of the Post Wrestling Network. And I think you can go many different directions here, whether it is a wrestler hosted one, whether it's another news one. There's a number of wrestling shows that I listen to. I give honorable mention to The Fix with Wade Keller and Todd Martin, to WrestleNomics Radio. But my choice was Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, and Garrett Gonzalez, who is also doing shows with them as well, was my pick. Let's go to Wai.
That was mine as well. I also want to give honorable mention though to WrestleNomics and also to the Landmarks. They're two wrestling podcasts that I feel really have found their niche. WrestleNomics, of course, dealing with the economic side of professional wrestling, and then the Landmarks gives you a New Japan Wrestling fans, local New Japan Wrestling fans perspective. But for me, Dave and Brian, I think, are excellent. Besides the man sitting diagonally from me, Dave is, to me, the most excellent. Besides the man sitting diagonally from me, Dave is, to me, the most trusted source for wrestling news. I don't always agree with their opinions, but I always respect them. And so we'll often do our shows right after Raw, and then I'll often go to listen to what they thought, because they always, bring something different that I might have not thought about.
Braden.
I pick Sunday night's main event because
Braden.
I pick Sunday night's main event because fuck the beef. I miss you. And that's just being real with you.
Well, it's very nice.
Very nice. Yeah, I like it.
And I went for Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. I find it interesting, similar to the Omega Jericho interview. Just anytime you get to look behind the curtain and why these big things happen and why those decisions were made, I find super interesting. So yeah, and I think Conrad is awesome on that. Bruce is pretty frustrating at times to listen to, but it is very interesting to hear, like, the guy who was by Vince's side all those years, how things went about.
All right, let's go to the listener picks. We had the number one pick was Something to Wrestle with 12.7% of the vote, followed by Wrestling Observer Radio, ENC's Pod of Awesomeness, Talk is Jericho, The Voices of Wrestling Flagship, What Happened When, and OSW Review as the top vote getters. So those were the choices made to review as the top vote getters. So those were the choices made. Next category, an interesting one, a new one, best social media account. And I think you can go, much like the last one, you can go many, many different directions here. It's whether it's a news source, whether it's someone that you just find entertaining. For ones that I just find to be, Twitter accounts that I find really informative, that I enjoy. Alan Blackstock, who does these great, deep dives into wrestlers, just with these long stories about them, with highlights of their careers. I think for a wrestler I find stories about them with highlights of their careers. I think for a wrestler I find just so entertaining on Twitter because he's different than everyone. A local performer, RJ City. I think he's hilarious on Twitter.
Yes, he is. Absolutely.
John Cena's Instagram, RJ City. I think he's hilarious on Twitter.
Yes, he is. Absolutely.
John Cena's Instagram.
Cena's Instagram is amazing.
Is really good, but my choice is Game Changer Wrestling, who I think they have been able to just penetrate the wrestling zeitgeist and completely understand their audience. When they have a big announcement, they build up to it so well. They have, the state-of-the-art videos that they were producing are, to me, what everyone should be following. And I think that they just have such a great handle on their fan base. And that's why they've been one of the top independent outlets this year, where you can really showcase the power of being an influencer in the wrestling social media landscape. Davie.
An honorable mention would be John Cena for me. I think he's hilarious. I think he knows and understands how much of a reach he has. So when he posts a picture of Kenny Omega coming up to the Rumble,
right?
He knows everyone. When he posts a picture of Kenny Omega coming up to the Rumble,
right?
He knows everyone's going to go crazy, and he just sits back and enjoys it. But Becky Lynch is my pick. I think she's been great this year.
Right, she's been crazy.
She's any kind of battle she's had on Twitter with someone, she just kills it. She killed Corey Graves last week, where he made Jericho. A comment, and she's just like, "Oh, you're just here to observe me." be the guy and be the man. Yeah, she's hilarious.
Braden.
My honorable mention goes to Becky Lynch because she just as soon as like the end of the year came around and she started getting really popular, her Twitter she's just been a savage. But I'm going with the man who spoiled Infinity War for everyone on Twitter, the biggest heel of 2018, Tommaso Ciampa. How could you do such a
I think that's the worst stuff.
Horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
You spoiled it. Therefore, you're a dick and I love it. He's so funny. You spoiled it. Therefore, you're a dick and I love it. He's so funny. He refuses to actually tag people. So he'll go at and then say the person's name, which is really funny. He just cuts promos on Twitter. So
I'm really glad this is a category because I think
great category.
In 2018,
guys.
it's like it's incredibly important to have a good social media presence, and I think pro wrestling translates to social media so well. And you see people that take advantage of it, and people who are completely clueless. But I want to give honorable mention to PCO, who I think I want to give honorable mention to PCO. Who I think has, for a man who's 52 years old, the man seems to understand viral videos way better than a lot of people my age or younger. He's just incredibly entertaining. Every single video that he posts with Destro, to me, he is a must follow. And but I have to also go with Becky Lynch. Even before she was the man, she was doing some really cool stuff on Instagram as a babyface, you know, doing very clever, displaying her wit in many creative ways that you know, obviously we didn't get to see on TV. But the moment she became this new character, she's taken that concept onto Twitter in a whole new level. So she's my favorite social media account.
Top 3. Number 3 with 3.6% of the votes, Kevin Owens. Number 2 with 5.6%, Tommaso Ciampa. And in a landslide, Becky Lynch, 60.9% of the votes. In a landslide, Becky Lynch, 60.9% of the votes. She runs away with this department. And yeah, I think that has been a big part of this push that I don't think gets a whole lot of focus, is how she is doing this 24/7, and it's not just on SmackDown every week. I think it's been a big part of the momentum that she's been able to bring about. Okay, now we go to most improved performer. Let's start with Braden. Who is your most improved performer of 2018?
I pick Cody Rhodes, or Cody, just because I've been a fan of him when he was in WWE, and then he left, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's such a crazy thing." I was never a fan of his wrestling. I always thought he was a good promo. I thought he had a good character. He's a Rhodes kid. It's instant money, but his matches just really never did it for me. But then I watched him at Wrestle Kingdom against Kota Ibushi, and I was like, that wasn't bad. And then I got to see him and Kenny and Kota. Maybe it's just Kota Ibushi who makes Cody Rhodes a better wrestler. However, his matches this year were way better than anything before. So I think Cody Rhodes has improved greatly.
Davie.
I honorable mention to Buddy Murphy.
True.
He's someone who was on NXT for a while. He was tag champion for a while. Murphy.
True.
He's someone who was on NXT for a while. He was tag champion for a while. And to be honest, back then, I wouldn't be able to pick him out from which one's Wesley Blake, which one's Buddy Murphy. He didn't really do anything for me. I think he's completely reinvented himself. He's helped 205 such a great deal, and he's a fantastic wrestler. But my most improved has to be, again, to Becky Lynch. I was never a fan. I know a load of people liked Becky. I've never liked her. I found her irritating. To me, she was like that cover teacher at school who would come into your lesson when your teacher's sick and would try to make you enthusiastic about learning and would try to talk on your level by saying words like bro and things. And it would just put me off completely. That was Becky Lynch until...
This was a hatred Davie had.
Yeah,
he actually did not
dislike.
He's
Becky
British.
Lynch.
They don't like Irish people, you know.
But yeah, like the change in character really won me over. She's fantastic. She's putting on fantastic matches. Everything from the social media account to her interviews, everything. I think she's all round improved.
My honorable mentions were 2 female performers. One being Bianca Belair, who I think is going to be a big breakout star for them, and Tessa Blanchard on Impact Wrestling, who I think has become the best part of Impact Wrestling. My choice was Hangman Page. Phenomenal G1. Certainly a big part of the elite, but I think sometimes he's not the focused member, but I see him having a huge upside in 2019, him being part of that group that is leaving Ring of Honor. I think that's a big hole to be leaving in Ring of Honor, losing Hangman Page. And I think he has just matured into an excellent performer. Wai.
Page would be my honorable mention. I think he's been fantastic, not just as a wrestler, but also as a personality. But if we're simply comparing somebody's stock from 2017 to 2018, I think it has to be Becky Lynch.
Our listeners voted third place with 10.1% of the votes was Hangman Page. 10.8% of the votes, just edging out Hangman Page, was Becky Lynch. 19.3% voted for Velveteen Dream as the most improved.
He just keeps getting better, though, baby.
He was a lot of people's pick last year.
Right.
I don't know if he's made the same improvements year over year.
I think he has improved, but he just keeps getting better. So
next one is Angle of the Year. I went with Gato turning on Kazuchika Okada after their long association, and then Gato going against him. I thought that this was the fact that they kept them paired for so long. The turn meant something. We recently watched SummerSlam 2013, where they did it with Paul Heyman and CM Punk. And yes, they had the affiliation, but it to me wasn't years. It was 6 years of these two attached at the hip. That Gedo, this was his protege, and I thought it was a great angle when they finally executed it, that you actually had sadness that these two are no longer together. Wai, what was your angle of 2018?
My angle of the year was the Bullet Club is fine storyline, where Cody and Kenny Omega butted heads for the leadership of the Bullet Club. Cody and Kenny Omega butted heads for the leadership of the Bullet Club, tearing the entire group apart. It was a story that was largely told in Being the Elite, and I just thought they did a great job turning an organic rivalry between two alpha males in the stable into a war that split the entire team apart. In the process, I thought Cody turned into one of the hottest heels of 2018. It reunited the Golden Lovers, and I felt it was a feud that was responsible for selling out Supercard of Honor, responsible for selling out Supercard of Honor, making that strong style evolved main events mean so much. And at that time, I'm sure it played a big part into the success of All In later on in September.
Braden.
Yeah, I'd have to say honorable mention to that Bullet Club, simply because they made a whole angle pretty much over a YouTube show, and it's really cool. But I watch NXT every week, and I wouldn't necessarily say this is the best angle, but I'm gonna say it's my favorite angle, because
this is my number 2.
Okay, because I might put this as a worst angle as well.
Oh, maybe we don't have the same one in mind.
No. I'm talking about how for 3 months we didn't know who attacked Aleister Black, who did do the attack, and I hated it. I hated the whole angle and everything. But then when it was the final reveal, I was like, this is so fucking great. And it was when it was revealed that Johnny Gargano turned and it was the evil guy. And there was so much other things in wrestling this year, but this one had me like laughing and enjoying it. And I just was like, you got me, and I love it. So that's the angle, but not necessarily Aleister Black being attacked, but the reveal that it was Gargano is what I really liked. That was my favorite this year.
Davey, did you go with the same, or did you have a new one?
Yeah, who killed Aleister Black? That was my best angle of the year. What I like with NXT is it doesn't feel like pockets of different wrestlers on islands doing their own thing on the show. And this storyline accentuated that. Everyone was involved in it, from the women to the tag team to the men's division. All of them were involved with this angle. And then the payoff made sense. It wasn't Rikishi who did it. It made complete sense.
You were mad, actually.
I was mad.
We watched this, and I was
really
laughing, and he was so mad.
But it made complete sense. It was Johnny Gargano. He was kind of justified in doing what he did. It made complete sense for the story, and completely changed his character in the process. And then led to an awesome match. So yeah, who killed Aleister Black is mine.
Yeah, I thought the payoff when Aleister Black storms into Full Sail
and
is killing everyone. It's like, this guy is a megastar.
Right.
That is just, could be a top baby face on the main roster. I thought it was such a great climax to all of it. And yeah, that was my honorable mention.
Yeah,
was
when he
the
walks
same.
in there, he's hauling out, he's kicking people left and right. It's like Stone Cold
It was
coming
like
back.
Austin
Yeah,
when he took on the
it's
Alliance
so cool.
and all that.
I showed a non-wrestling friend the match, and in the video package they show that clip, and he was like, "Who is this guy with the tattoos? He's so scary walking around kicking people." It's true. It's great.
Top 3 were the Golden Lovers reunion. Number 2, Who Attacked Aleister Black. Number 1, The Rise of Becky Lynch, which I don't know if that's not really an angle. That's
Right.
more,
She turned on Charlotte, though. I guess that's the angle.
but that got 19.6% of the votes. This is another new one that we added. Best celebrity involvement. Let's start with Braden. Who came into this world and just wowed you?
I instantly wrote down David Arquette and then deleted it instantly.
You thought about saving it for worse stuff.
Yeah. I couldn't even think of one. This was one I didn't fill out until later on. I was like, oh, I guess that counts. I don't watch the show Arrow. Never have, probably never will. So Stephen Amell is just some guy from Toronto, but I'm going to pick Stephen Amell at All In Chicago because, man, if you're not a wrestler, you sure proved yourself to me, bud, because that was, didn't you do like a coast to coast? What did he do?
Yeah.
He was great. So I picked Stephen Amell because he's
Wait.
a celebrity.
I'm so excited for this one because my favorite celebrity involvement of 2018 was Wheatus.
Fuck you.
Playing Nate
Ah.
playing Nate Webb's entrance at Joey Janela's Lost in New York. I did not watch the show live, John, but I saw it after the fact, and it was spectacular. I did not watch the show live, John, but I saw it after the fact, and it was spectacular. Maybe the best entrance of 2018.
This is one of those categories that I was having a hard time with, and then I remembered that, and it was one of those answers. I'm like, I know I'll be the only one with this, and
With
Wade
Wheatus?
scooped me. Mine was Wheatus at
so good.
Joey Janela's Lost in New York. Nate Webb, like the best entrance. He comes out and the guy gets involved physically with MJF. I rewatched it this week, and it was just so great. Just a perfect use of a celebrity in a wrestling landscape for the best audience possible at that show in New York over SummerSlam weekend. Wrestling landscape for the best audience possible at that show in New York over SummerSlam weekend. Davie.
I couldn't really think of anyone else apart from Stephen Amell in All In. I thought the build was pretty good on being the elite, and he pulled off a good match. It wasn't by any means the best match on the show, but he did fine. And I also couldn't think of any other celebrities.
Yeah,
in
it
wrestling this
kind of
year.
goes to show, like, maybe...
Can I read a few of them?
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
please.
I was gonna say, who
'cause
else is there?
yeah,
I'm
what
not
else?
going to read all of them, but just to get you, first of all, we got one vote for Weezer at Lost in New York. It was not Weezer. Wale hosting the rap battle was thrown in there, which
Oh,
was that this year?
Oh,
last
was that
year.
this
That was
year?
last year.
That was not this
Okay,
year.
that might not have
Last
been accurate then.
Yeah.
Kid Rock at the Hall of Fame. Enzo Amore at Survivor Series. Billy Corgan and the NWA. I guess that is
Stop.
considered. We did get 2 votes for Wheatus. There was a separate, so technically they should have had 3 votes, I guess, if you include Weezer. John Oliver's criticism of WWE in 3 votes, I guess, if you include Weezer. John Oliver's criticism of WWE in Saudi Arabia, I guess, that got multiple votes. John Mayer ringside at All In. Nita Strauss playing Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance. And then the top 3, the third one I don't think counts. Ronda Rousey and WWE. Second was David Arquette, Nick Gage, and number 1 by a landslide. 52.5% of the votes for Stephen Amell at All In against Christopher Daniels.
This might have been maybe a more competitive category had it been like 2008
Oh,
or
yeah.
something like that.
Bob Barker or
But
whatever
maybe-
they had those people.
Maybe wrestling's moved on.
Good.
Wheatus kept it alive, so the bar is going to be upped in 2019. This another new one. Best piece of merchandise. This was strictly done for you, Braden.
I know.
When I
No,
knew
for
you were
me-
going to be on the
For
panel.
me, talk about it to him.
Well,
this guy buys more shit
this
than
is
me.
definitely your category, but why don't you start things off way
Oh, okay. Yeah.
through a
Uh,
curveball there?
Like I thought this was an important category because especially us being at All In, we saw the importance of t-shirts as really as I look at all this as like sort of a lifeblood of independent wrestling and wrestling in general. Wrestling fans, for whatever reason, just take to t-shirts the same way bands music fans like love t-shirts. So there were a lot of great choices I thought this year. I felt my favorite shirt this year was the Villain Club Gold Edition. I looked on Pro Wrestling Tees, and this was, it seems like it was the top selling shirt of the year. Something about Marty Scurll's aesthetic fits so beautifully with that iconic design of the Bullet Club logo. And I thought when Pro Wrestling Tees or whoever was involved made this gold colored version, it just added that perfect classy touch to really dress it up and make it, to me, my favorite shirt of the year.
Just dripping in that villain finesse.
That's
yeah, Pro Wrestling Tees have the. I'm wearing. Thanks, Scrump. I have too many.
That's a great hoodie.
Yeah, it's very comfortable.
I wear it a lot.
ProWrestlingTees.com.
It's very comfortable. Keeps me warm.
Before we went, we all went to Chicago for All In. Before we went there, Scrump sent me like a year ago prior, more than that, Bullet Club with the Chicago flag logo. And I was like, oh my God, he sent me this because Punk is coming. And then years later, we found out that wasn't the thing. But when we were there, I wore my Chicago Bullet Club shirt and they were selling it and people had it. However, they had a different one that David bought. And I thought that was the coolest shirt that I saw that weekend. And it's the Chaos logo in the Chicago.
Oh, the Chicago variant of the Chaos.
Yeah, it looks so cool. So I thought that was cool. David bought it. I was like,
is this your pick or is this just a story?
I'm picking this as my, because it's just cool. I did see the cool villain stuff as well. Yeah. I think the villains shirts are honorable mention to everything that guy. I swear he puts out a t-shirt every day. He makes millions of dollars from t-shirts.
I think one of the really interesting things about this whole All Elite thing is, you know, how are they going to kind of will they see the same success with their Elite branded clothing as you know, with the loss of the Bullet Club logo?
They lose that logo. That's a big thing.
I don't think so. I think that this is so much about these guys more so than what's on the shirt.
I think the fact that the shirt looks so great really helps too.
It did. The classic Bullet Club was a great shirt, and all the variables that they had are really great. And then now they're just going to change them into their own.
But of course, it takes both. Like the Bullet Club shirts, I'm sure are going to sell a lot less without
For sure they will
attached to it. So anyway,
we'll build up to Davie's pick. I just, for an honorable mention, I included Becky's The Man shirt. Only because I think that if she breaks through, that could be her Austin 316 shirt. Like I can see that shirt translating over into pop culture that other women are wearing. And it could be like this big moniker that's attached that is Becky Lynch's. But my choice, because I just always have loved this shirt, Bad Luck Fale's Fuck 'em shirt. That is my choice. Davie.
Easy. Kairi Zane's
shirt. That is my choice. Davie.
Easy. Kairi Zane's pirate hat.
Oh, we said merchandise. We did not say t-shirts.
They sell it, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you own it?
You have one.
I'm assuming you're getting me one for Christmas, so I haven't quite purchased one.
Spoilers.
Yet, but yeah, who wouldn't want one?
The top listener picks. Marty Scurll's Villain Club shirt was 5th. Golden Elite shirt was 4. Bullet Club number 3. Number 2 with 4.7% of the votes was the Post Wrestling t-shirt. Yes. And number 1, 17.8% was Becky Lynch's The Man shirt. So those were.
I gotta give me that The Man shirt. Yeah,
Becky. We got a few votes for the toque as well.
All right.
Whoa,
not the beanie.
Where do they get those?
Store.postwrestling.com. Thanks, Braden.
All right. Best
20%
music.
off.
Another Braden topic. This can be an entrance theme. This can be a pay-per-view theme. Music associated somehow in the world of wrestling. I will start off this one.
It's a clean sweep.
It's not going to be a clean sweep. I think I'll guarantee that.
Just checking.
Granted, part of this is because of the wrestler who I just always enjoy his big matches. But to me, when it's a main event and I hear Dvorak Symphony number 9/4 as Walter comes out,
nice.
That is my favorite wrestler's theme song. Way.
My choice for this, there are a lot of great themes in particular. I mean, it's interesting. My choice for this, there are a lot of great themes in particular. I mean, it's interesting because like when you're talking about a great wrestling theme, it's obviously a combination of the song being great, but also how well the audience reacts to it as well. I guess I didn't really pay attention to my own definitions of it. I want to give a special honorable mention to Never Look Back by Matthew Massey. Of course, being the Elite montage music that
Papa Buck,
like
Papa Buck,
a really bad song, like genuinely. But the fact that like it's connected so well and its cheesiness with that type of YouTube video, I think really makes it stand out. But my actual favorite song related to wrestling this year was a gentleman named Josiah Williams, who goes by Wrestle and Flow on Twitter.
Right.
He basically, what he likes to do is he takes remixes from entrance themes, and he freestyles all over them. So I kind of want to just use this time to kind of give a bit of a spotlight on him. My particular favorite song that he did this year was of the Gorillas of Destiny theme song, which was a song that I never really paid all too much attention to before, but to have his wonderful lyrics over top of it, his wonderful flow on top of it, made me pay a lot more attention to that song. It was my favorite wrestling song of 2018.
Davie, what was your best music?
A lot more attention to that song. It was my favorite wrestling song of 2018.
Davie, what was your best music of 2018?
I went for Blood in the Water by Grandson.
Yeah.
NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 4.
You may recognize it from the show Riverdale, John.
A great
Just
pick.
checking, just checking.
It's there's something when you're at takeover events when the loading screen comes up of the next match, and this song just fitted it so well, and the crowd always go nuts whenever, I mean, it's always stacked, those cards, so whatever image comes up, and I think the kind of like high-pitched manic siren sound of this song just perfectly fitted for this, perfectly fitted for the feud between Ciampa and Gargano. And it's funny, it comes on at work a lot and it irritates a lot of people because it's quite an irritating song. And people, yeah,
That's how it goes.
and it irritates a lot of people because it's quite an irritating song. And people, yeah,
That's how it goes. That's it.
That's
it.
That one.
It's kind of
And
annoying. I love
everyone
it.
changes the channel whenever it comes on, but I can't hear it and not like it because it takes me back to that event.
And Braden, you chose New Orleans by Kid Rock for WrestleMania.
Obviously. No, honorable mention goes to two different people. One is Aleister Black. His music is not new this year, but I love that
It doesn't
song.
have to be new.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that
Yeah,
song.
it's
No Man is Purely Whatever. But honorable mention goes to Tainara Conti.
Oh,
Conti?
her songs are banger.
That's not
yeah.
me. It's like a
Dizzy Rascal
It's like
kind of.
it's
It's
like
good.
Skepta or something. I don't know. It's lit. However, I have to ask you something. Are you all in? Because that is my number
I
one
forgot
pick.
about All In.
Downstate. Are you all in? The theme song for All In.
The amount of hatred I grew for that song on that car ride, that longer than needed car ride to Chicago, was unbearable.
I think we listened to that song about like,
And then we ran by,
103 times.
well, you weren't around. Me and Wai like walked right past Downstate at the convention. They were just hanging
How do you
around.
know what downstate?
How do you know what they look like?
Because there was a sign
They had
that said
shirts.
Downstate next to them.
That song was amazing. They play. I called it. They played it for every video, for everything in the arena. Being at that arena and then hearing it every time, I just giggle because I annoyed you with it. But actually, it's a banger.
The listener selections. We'll do the top 5 here. Number 5 was Minoru Suzuki. Number 4, Tommaso Ciampa. Number 3, Undisputed Era. 2 was Aleister Black. And number 1 was 16% of the votes, Shinsuke Nakamura. I presume the
new
newer,
one.
updated
Actually-
heel version. Percent of the votes, Shinsuke Nakamura. I presume the
new
newer,
one.
updated
Actually,
heel version.
That's
Honorable
pretty good.
mention goes to Ciampa's music. He did not have music before. He would come out with nothing, and then people would just boo him. And then he added music, and then cut a promo about it. It's pretty cool music, actually.
I will say among the better entrances of the year for pro wrestling, that Nakamura entrance at WrestleMania, I thought was awesome. He comes out, he's just totally like in his Michael Jackson skin. It was an awesome entrance with
I like the addition too to the Nakamura with the lyrics and stuff. In me eye.
I like the newer one better than the
it's
last
cool.
one.
It's gangster.
All right, best digital series. This can be, you can go many different ways with this. What was your choice, Braden?
I enjoy the 24 show. I believe it's called that. I don't have the network. I just leech off of David's. And whenever a pay-per-view ends or a Raw ends or whatever, and then they air like those 24 specials, I always get sucked into them. There was one, was it this year that they did the one on the Hardys?
Yes.
The one that one was crazy. I'm a huge Hardy Boys fan, and that like they showed their like demons a little bit. Like they didn't kind of gloss over things. They were like, hey, this is what's the deal. And I really liked it. But they just did a year,
including like footage of like Matt Hardy screwed
Yeah.
up, Jeff asking for pills
yeah,
during a
like
shoot.
it was so real that I was shocked that what they would put into that. And I'm not sure if it's the same show, but they just did the AJ Styles, or was that a 365?
365, yeah.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed the 24, but the 365 where AJ Styles is just having his year, like of being the guy essentially, and it's so great. And like they go to like this video game store in Tokyo, something potato. I'm forgetting. And like they go to like this video game store in Tokyo, something potato. I'm forgetting the name. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Super potato.
Yeah,
or something
super
like that,
potato.
yeah.
It's just cool. It's like seeing someone. I like these videos where you get to see people that I watch every week, and they're like superheroes to you. And then in these things, they're actual just people. This guy's just trying to buy video games in a store and like look at cool shit. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And the Hardys like, oh, they have demons. It's cool to kind of see that aspect when for years WWE would like pretend that never happened. So for them to document it themselves, it's really interesting to watch. And I never thought in a million years that I would watch these kinds of things, but I get hooked so quick into them because it's interesting. So I give shout out to, I don't know which one. I don't even know the names of the shows. 24, 365, whatever it is. I picked that.
Okay. Those are two different series. So you're picking 24. Davey.
Well, I went with 365.
Sure.
The Kevin Owens one especially, I thought was fascinating.
That one was very good.
The moment he comes into Gorilla after his match against Jericho at WrestleMania, and he goes to Vince like, "We were good," and Vince like, "Nope," and just clearly hated the match. And it was really interesting just seeing him at his lows. There's another bit going into that WrestleMania where he's in the car and he pulls up next to, I think it's AJ and Charlotte. Another bit going into that WrestleMania where he's in the car and he pulls up next to, I think it's AJ and Charlotte. And he's like, "Hey, remember last month when we were all champions?" And they're like, all these little moments where you can really see how frustrated he is and how much of a perfectionist he is. The AJ one was good as well. I can't remember as much. We watched it after our Survivor Series viewing party with the Bushbees and Jesse from the Six, and we'd had a few pops, so I can't remember that one quite as clearly. Okay. But that Kevin Owens 365 especially, I thought was fascinating.
I went with 10 pounds of gold. Mainly for the build up to All In, where they took a match in Cody and Nick Aldis that people dumped on when that match was announced. And being in the building that night, the heat was out of this world. When Cody pinned Nick Aldis, I haven't been to too many matches that have generated that level of just the buzz during that walkout throughout the entire body of that 20-minute match, and then exploding as Cody won the title. And I think entire body of that 20-minute match and then exploding as Cody won the title. And I think all of that is attributable to how well they promoted that match on that series. So that to me is the goal of any of these series that we go. It's to build programs, to build performers so that you have that connection. And they took what was a cold match. I didn't think people were too hot for it, and they turned it into that. To me was my favorite match at All In, just because of the story and the reaction that they were able to generate. Wai.
My choice this year, and again, like this was a year where I feel like this scene kind of really blew up. 10 pounds of gold was excellent. WWE have really been capitalizing between their Chronicle series, their Day of series, 365 and 2024, but also on YouTube, a lot of wrestlers themselves are taking kind of social media into their own hands and providing their own passions in video form. And of course, Up, Down, Down deserves a shout out. Sheamus's workout videos deserve a shout out. Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins have an action figure YouTube series.
Yes.
I don't know if you know that.
Yes.
But to me, the king still is Being the Elite. It's a show that I feel is more relevant most weeks than Raw. I hold it responsible for for being a significant factor in selling out All In, filling the arena for Supercard of Honor, and anybody who seems to appear on that show. Between people like Flip Gordon and SCU, their careers have skyrocketed, I would say, because of their association. To a lesser extent, we'll see.
The listeners chose in third place 10 pounds of gold, second the Edge and Christian show, and number one 66.2% of the votes being the Elite.
I would have picked it if I just
won 66.2% of the votes being the Elite.
I would have picked it if I just didn't think of it. And it's funny, it's interesting because it's like a YouTube thing. I think of it completely outside the machine.
Yeah, YouTube is digital.
But you know what? I love that show as well. So I say what up to that.
You're down for 24. It's written in stone. Did everyone have a choice for best book? Did this come down to me? Am I alone here? I'm choosing that on behalf of the panel. Nitro by Guy Evans.
That was great. That was a good read.
The history of WCW that I will lend to all three of you. Davey can read it a second time. Honorable mention to Death of the Territories by Tim Hornbaker, which was also a really great read on the history of just the whole territorial system. And our listeners chose in third place, Crazy Like a Fox on Brian Pillman by Liam O'Rourke. Number two, Eggshells by Chris Charlton. And number one was Nitro by Guy Evans with 32.5% of the votes. Next topic was Okay, this is where we separated them. We are going to give our pick for best TV show overall, but this is specific to best wrestling TV episode. One specific episode of a series from this past year. So I'll start things off. I chose the September 8th episode of Ring of Honor, which featured one of my favorite matches on television this year. It was Jay Lethal and Jonathan Gresham in their Iron Man match. One of the best matches I watched on television this year, maybe my favorite televised match. Just an excellent star-making performance from Jonathan Gresham that I think he has had a lot of buzz on him, but this match I thought kind of had him break through to the audience. And Jay Lethal was excellent throughout this match. Some people gave this 5 stars. I thought it was just a tremendous 60-minute episode led by that title match. Braden.
I kind of just did what you did. I picked a TV match that I really liked, and I kind of just picked that. It wasn't an Iron Man match that took up most of the episode, but it was an episode of NXT. It was the tag team title match between Mustache Mountain, Trent Seven, and Tyler Bate versus Undisputed Era. And it was where this match happened versus Undisputed Era. And it was where this match happened on TV. But because of that, I'm picking that episode. It's so this was a hard one to pick because I'm thinking of so many things that either happen on like a Raw or a SmackDown or an NXT that I really, really liked. But when it came down to it, I think TV match, this was mine. So I'm picking that because of the match. So NXT, I think I have it here, July 11th. Or something like that. So I picked that one.
Davie, your favorite episode.
So
11th. Or something like that. So I picked that one.
Davie, your favorite episode.
So I picked that one as well. I worked backwards. So I picked that TV match. But when I looked at the whole episode, you had Danny Burch against Adam Cole. And that match was fantastic as well. Danny Burch is him and Oni Lorcan are so good on NXT TV. They just bring it every week. And Adam Cole is obviously fantastic as well. And my girl, Kairi Sane, was on this episode as well. So to have
that makes
Kairi,
sense.
A hard-hitting singles match, and
that tag match.
Isn't that the first 5-star match on WWE TV?
Like in TV.
In TV.
True,
for
true.
Years?
Probably.
If ever? I don't know.
I really enjoyed that match.
If you consider it TV, I guess the lines are a little blurred, but we're talking, I guess, weekly series.
An episode.
Yes.
Weekly episode.
With commercial breaks,
Wai.
My choice this year, I mean, first of all, this is a category that obviously really benefits, the hour-long programs. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, was there an episode of Raw or SmackDown that could be in contention for this? I mean, there was. That Seth Rollins Iron Man match one probably came.
That got a lot of
close.
votes.
True, yeah.
The gauntlet one.
Yeah.
But at the last minute, I realized, this is best TV wrestling episode. So I went with Glow, Season 2, Episode 4, The Mother of All Matches. This was the episode featuring the Welfare Queen, of course, played by Kia Stevens, formerly Awesome Kong, who visits her son at Stanford University. And the episode deals with her being forced to confront her own discomfort with playing a negative African-American stereotype for a pro wrestling audience. I thought it was incredibly complex and deep, and Kia Stevens was amazing. So if you're going to watch any episode of Glow this year, I urge everybody to check that one out.
All right. This was a strange one because the listeners, 30.7% of the votes was for other. I don't know what that means. So that one's thrown out. Yeah. So the number one choice was with 9.7%, the July 11th, 2018 episode of NXT with Undisputed was with 9.7%, the July 11th, 2018 episode of NXT with Undisputed Era and Mustache Mountain, followed by the Raw episode with the Rollins Gauntlet match and the NXT episode from July 25th, that same month, with Aleister Black versus Tommaso Ciampa.
Ooh, yes, that was a good match. That was where Ciampa won the title. Yeah.
All right, now we go on to best wrestling television show. So this you're encompassing an entire series, and I'll start the thought off because I'm dovetailing off of Wai. I chose Glow as my favorite wrestling television show. I thought that the second season was. I thought it built upon the first season. I thought they went deeper with a lot of the different characters, with Kia Stevens being one of them, who was the star of that episode. And I thought that they were able to, just peel back a lot more layers and go deeper with many of them. So Glow was my pick. Let's go to Davie.
Surprise, surprise, I went for NXT. not only is it my favorite wrestling show every week, I think this is the best year NXT has ever had. And NXT is always pretty strong, but the whole year's been solid, and obviously has ever had. And NXT is always pretty strong, but the whole year's been solid, and obviously jumping on the show this year, I've been watching it and talking it and thinking about it more than I normally would. But week in and week out, it's very rare we come off a show and go, ugh, like, what do we talk about there? That was awful.
See, you
Very,
guys,
very
you
rarely
guys watch a
have that.
3-hour show or a 2-hour show, and you're like, "Holy shit!" We watch 1 hour, even if it's bad. It's like, it was 1 hour. So,
I look forward to NXT every week. I love that show.
Well, I picked NXT. Surprise, surprise. David is absolutely right. This is the best year in NXT. When this show was really getting going, when you had like Finn Balor, everyone was like, "This is amazing. This is so cool and so niche." And then look where it's like even evolved to. It's so fantastic. And yeah, it's only an hour. So I look forward to it because I'm like, oh, they tell me what matches are, if there is any big ones. They tell me what it's going to be. I know they're going to deliver. It's only an hour out of my life. I can totally watch it. And I always watch it. It's great.
They promote for the next week so well.
They're so smart.
We've got an episode coming on tonight.
And we know
we know what it's going to be. And then we know what's coming on. They'll announce one match for 2 weeks from now and stuff like that. So it's constantly getting you excited about what's going to happen. One match for 2 weeks from now and stuff like that. So it's constantly getting you excited about what's going to happen.
And specifically this year, like the characters that you guys will probably review in the future because they'll all leave NXT.
They might not be the same characters.
Exactly. So we really like them for the way they were this year. Like there's so many different aspects that made this show great, but you can listen to us talk about it every Thursday on postwrestling.com.
Take care of Lacey Evans and EC3.
Yeah, take care of the riffraff there. Take all of it.
We're all general manager now.
Yeah.
So it's
we are the general manager.
Yeah. Wait, what was your best wrestling TV show?
You know, I certainly would have went with Glow, but I think like for this category, I definitely look for quality of output and consistency of output. And to me, it has to be NXT. You know, when we look at 52, 53 episodes a year, and all of them, even the worst ones being pretty okay and pretty decent. And I think just doing a great job of like giving you non-insulting professional wrestling in a high quality, doing a great job of like giving you non-insulting professional wrestling in a high quality form. So yeah, that gets my vote.
Top three were at number 3 being the Elite. Number 2 was SmackDown at 16.8%. And number 1, 66% of 3 being the Elite. Number 2 was SmackDown at 16.8%. And number 1, 66% of the votes. Raw. No. NXT. Raw did not fare well
next week
in our voting. Okay, we continue on up and we go over to Best Event. This was a tough category. I had Wrestle Kingdom down here. I had Dominion down. But the one I went to, of all the shows I went to WrestleMania weekend, this was one I did not go to. NXT TakeOver New Orleans.
Whoa.
That had the 6-way ladder match, that had Ciampa versus Gargano, Black versus Almas, Baszler versus Moon, and me and Wai were barely conscious coming home, doing a podcast, and then watching this. And I'm like all groggy watching this. I'm like, this is a really, really great show. And you know, we saw a lot of great wrestling that weekend, but it seemed that from start to finish, I thought that was the show of the weekend. And in my opinion, show of the year. Let's go to Wai.
Yeah, I mean, great choice. I think for me, I had to think back to what really affects me though is like watching a show live. For me, I really feel like I connect a lot more with the show if I watch.
Yeah,
it
me
as it
too,
takes
100%.
place. So I'm sure if I went to that NXT New Orleans show, I might have like really felt the same way. But I kind of have to choose the shows that I feel I really connected with the most. And for me, it was an early winner this year in Wrestle Kingdom 12 between Omega and Jericho, the Ospreay, Skrull, Hiromu, Kushida 4-way, Naito, Okada, of course, but also even a match like Goto Suzuki for the hair. I thought top to bottom with the pomp and circumstance of the entire event, and Suzuki for the hair, I thought top to bottom with the pomp and circumstance of the entire event in the Tokyo Dome. To me, that was the card of the year.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I agree with Wai. That is my pick as well.
You were also there live.
Yes. So that change, Wai just did it for me. That changes everything. When you're at an event, it makes it so much more special. Also, when you go to the Tokyo Dome, you can bring your own alcohol in. Guys, You can bring
Number
your
one
own
right there.
drinks.
You know,
and
you can do that
snacks
at
in.
Raw. You can do that at just about any wrestling show.
No,
can't bring your
no,
own.
you can't
Oh,
bring
sorry.
your
I
own.
thought you
You're
meant
paying
just bring,
15
bring your
bucks for
own
it.
alcohol.
So I
in.
brought my own in, and I was like, they let me bring my own drinks in, and then I look at the prices for the drinks there, and they're so cheap. So
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, Wrestle Kingdom was so good. I traveled all across the world, and I went to this event. Really great event, though. I loved the 2 main events, and the 4-way holds a special place in my heart because I was so invested in all of the matches. And that 4-way though had the Skrull and Osprey storyline, the Takahashi, and then you had Kushida. Like everything in that event really, I couldn't pick the match I needed to go to the bathroom for. That's when you know it's a good event. When can I go get my beer? When can I go do this? I don't want to miss anything. That whole event was like my favorite thing I've ever been to. I can't ever see myself going to. I've never been to WrestleMania, but I can't see myself going to WrestleMania and being like, this is better than that, because it won't be. So I pick Wrestle Kingdom 12. So great.
Before you give your answer, Davie,
Because it won't be. So I pick Wrestle Kingdom 12. So great.
before you give your answer, Davie, how many takeovers did you go to this year? Did you go to 2 or just 1?
This year, I went to the Philadelphia Rumble,
Oh, you were at Philadelphia.
New Orleans, and Brooklyn.
Oh, so you went to 3.
Done 3 this year.
Did you go with a takeover or did you have another?
I went with the
choice?
takeover. I went for takeover New Orleans. Yeah, just start to end, it was fantastic. I shared a room with 3 other people. Start to end, it was fantastic. I shared a room with 3 other people, and 2 of them went to the ROH show that night, and the others went to Takeover. And when we got back, they just said, I heard Takeover was awesome. We need to watch it now. So pretty much as soon as I got back from watching it, we saw it on our computer, and it was just the best show.
That show is stacked.
Among the top 12, every takeover ranked in the top 12. The top 5 events we'll limit it to here. Number 5 was War Games. Number 4 was Wrestle Kingdom 12. Number 3 was Dominion. Number 2 was All In. And number 1, with 30.2% of the votes, Takeover New Orleans. So takeovers did very, very well in the voting. Next is Best Broadcaster. Let's start with Braden.
I instantly wrote Mauro Ranallo. Instantly, when I got this, I typed that in because I watch NXT. He's the greatest. Mamma mia. Oh my God. But then rewatching matches for this whole thing, I realized we all take Kevin Kelly for granted, because I had to watch, was it JR that did the commentary for the tag match, Golden Lovers and the Bucks?
The US.
He did all
show.
the US ones.
Yeah.
Right. I used to love listening to JR when I was younger, and it really affected watching. And then when I watched back some Kevin Kelly, I was like, man, I really like Kevin Kelly calling some of his calls are like legendary when he's displaying the stories of, like, you know, like the Young Bucks and the Golden Lovers and all these things. He gets really intricate without doing it. So I really like him. However, Mauro Ranallo is my pick.
You
How
have like
would we
this
know
big build up, and then you went a different way.
I'm all over the place. Mauro Ranallo, the video, this is why I pick him. The video that they
reaction
release
video?
now. They put the reaction video of him at the booth. And there's the one where he's like, he jumps out of his seat so many times. And then the one where like someone actually goes flying at him. It's so funny. He like gets up and the guy goes through the table or whatever. So good. This guy puts so much of his life into this. Like, he actually enjoys it. And it's almost like he's your voice in your brain when you shout and things go crazy. He's doing it for you. However, Mauro, as a huge wrestling and current hip hop fan, the pop culture references, they gotta like he's at a 10, he's gotta go to like an 8.
He's
gotta
not
like
going to an 8.
like
He's probably going to a 12.
like I don't know. I love Cardi B, but I don't know how many times I can watch wrestling with him mentioning Cardi B in one show. Like, Mauro, tone it down. No, I love you, but amazing. I pick Mauro, but again, Kevin Kelly's great.
Way.
Yeah, I want to use this to I didn't think you would pick, I guess, Kevin Kelly. So I wanted to pick Kevin Kelly because I thought he, to me, is quickly becoming as synonymous with New Japan for an English audience as Jim Ross was to the Attitude Era. And, you know, while I don't think he's the best announcer in terms of technicality, in terms of theatrics, I think he's incredibly consistent. He comes through with a great deal of research for all of his appearances. And when the product is consistent, he comes through with a great deal of research for all of his appearances. And when the product is without him, it just does not feel the same. So I think I think he's my favorite in 2018.
He's an honorable mention for me. And I think an attribute about Kevin Kelly is that he is so versatile. It is very tough to develop chemistry with a partner. And look at how many different people he has worked with this year, whether it's Don Callis, Rocky Romero, Chris Charlton, Mark Wazorek, who was one of the announcers. There was the recent announcer who had come over from New Brunswick. Jim Ross, he called the Long Beach show with. I mean, he calls with so many different people, and it's always that consistency that really lends itself well to the product. I also want to mention Lenny Leonard, who I don't think gets a whole lot of attention. I think him and Excalibur are two of the more underrated commentators. More people are hearing Excalibur now. I chose Mauro Ranallo. Rated commentators, more people are hearing Excalibur now. I chose Mauro Ranallo. I think that he had so much to those big shows at a time when the WWE product, especially, I think the commentary is something that doesn't get enough criticism, because as people look at the lack of stars, I think that there's a direct correlation to the commentary of how great commentary can help get stars to that next level. Commentary of how great commentary can help get stars to that next level. And bad commentary, whether it's jokes you're making and making fun of matches, or it's just diverting attention away, it can be it adds up, and it's harmful to the product. And that's the complete opposite in NXT. And I think that that's a big strength of Mauro Ranallo that maybe is not one of the strengths that always gets brought up. Davey.
Yeah, Mauro for me as well. He just makes everything sound epic. Calling Ciampa in the New Orleans match that sadistic son of a bitch and stuff like that. He gets into it, and you think, like, would Austin be where he gets into it? And you think, like, would Austin be where he was if it wasn't for JR? Like, you see clips of Austin, you think of JR, you hear that voice in your head. And I feel that with this era of NXT with Mauro, but also Kevin Kelly. How would we know about Risk Control if it wasn't for Kevin Kelly?
That is my favorite thing. Try explaining Risk Control to a non-wrestling.
It hurts more if you hold the wrist.
Obviously.
Like, keep hold of that wrist. And I didn't know that was a thing.
Here are the top 5. Number 5, Don Callis. Number 4, Renee Young. Number 3, Corey Graves. Number 2, Kevin Kelly. And number 1, 39.3% of the votes, Mauro Ranallo. All right. The next category is Best Character. Let's start with Wai.
Best character. I'm kind of curious if we do get a clean sweep for this one, but I'm going to start off Becky Lynch, the man.
We're not going to have a clean sweep.
No, we're definitely not having a clean sweep.
Okay. Let's hear.
I'm picking Balloon Okada. I'm kidding. I'm not picking that. I'm picking Velveteen Dream. I once did a show with you guys many years ago, and it was a worst of show. With you guys many years ago, and it was a worst of show. And I said the worst character of the year was this guy named Velveteen Dream, because I fucking hate him. And I hate that he's just a guy who thinks he's Prince in a year that Prince died. He's taken this and changed it into something completely different. He wore Call Me Up Vince on his tights. I don't understand that, but I just like everything that it is. He reminds me of a Goldust, but like better, evolved. And I love every time. There was this one thing on NXT this year that a lot of people scratched their heads at, and I think it became one of my favorite things in wrestling. And it was with EC3, where they're like at a pool somewhere, and the way it was shot and everything was so strange. Show that to a non-wrestling fan and they'll call you crazy. However, I ate it up. I ate it up so much. If this guy is not a big star, something is wrong in the world of wrestling. This character is so interesting, and I love it. Velveteen Dream.
Davey.
Yep, same for me. Velveteen Dream. You see so often in wrestling, people are given a character and they just look uncomfortable with it, whereas he completely owns this. You completely believe him. It is a bizarre character, but it's his, and he owns it. And all the little, all his attire stuff, it almost reminds me of Cena's Instagram. Just it's
strange.
It's just bizarre, and you're like, what message are you trying to get across to us?
He dressed
here?
up like Hogan randomly. A few times.
Wore Prince Puma's tights for his match against Ricochet and stuff like that. He's all in the character, and he's fantastic.
All right. For me, I had some honorable mentions. Frankie Kazarian on Being the Elite, whether it's his H or Trevor or just his SCU character. Seeing this guy all over WrestleMania weekend and just watching a lot of Game Changer, I'm putting Nick Gage as an honorable mention. I think he's unlike anyone else in wrestling, but we're going to have a split tie. Becky Lynch is my best character of 2018. The person I would put all my stock into to be the breakout star on that entire roster would be Becky Lynch. That could be just transformative for that company. Our listener picks, our top three were Tommaso Ciampa at 8.7%, Velveteen Dream at 21%, and 24% Becky Lynch. So there you go. We clearly have our pulse on the market. Best on the mic. I will start this one. I went with Samoa Joe, who I think has been fantastic through his speaking this year. And even if he hasn't always been booked the strongest, and I think has lost in key situations and hasn't been fully, his potential has not been fully realized, I think he's been dynamite as a promo. But I'll say this is not an easy category. When you say great promos in wrestling, it's not like this is a very deep pool that you can go into. I think promos are something that, as state of the art as the wrestling is, and there's some great stuff about wrestling, promos is not the department I look at that we are better off today. Like my honorable mentions were like Becky Lynch, Christopher Daniels, Eli Drake, who they're all great, but I don't think you have the depth that some of these other categories present. Let's go to Davie.
Yeah, I found this one tough, and I came upon this name, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. And I was running through my list with a friend of mine, and he was like, you're crazy. Why have you picked that? And I went with Daniel Bryan. List with a friend of mine, and he was like, you're crazy. Why have you picked that? And I went with Daniel Bryan. And I went with him because I believe him every time he speaks. And this is way before he's had his recent character turn. And he's fantastic now and is cutting great promos. But it all comes from a place of truth. Him giving his retirement speech all those years ago is one of the most honest things I've seen in wrestling. And then similarly, his announcement that he's coming back. And just every time he talks, he seems genuine. I believe him. And then he's from doing it all these years, because he wasn't a good promo, but he can weave that in now with believability for the actual storylines that are going on. I've said a few times on our show, I like it when wrestling is treated like a sport. And he seems like someone who is, being interviewed as a sportsman rather than this big grand character. And it's great to now see him with this new heel persona that he can take it up a notch as well.
I think if he keeps this up, I think he'll be a shoe-in next year. But great pick. Wai?
I went with Samoa Joe. I think, even though he's had a pretty quiet end of 2018, I think he has exhibited skills of a really top of the line promo, at least in the WWE. I'm trying to think of it, probably in all of top of the line promo, at least in the WWE. I'm trying to think of it, probably in all of wrestling right now. I thought he really exhibited that in the feud with AJ Styles, doing all the stuff with AJ's family. I think he really exhibits a cockiness and a smoothness that you don't really often see in professional wrestling anymore. So my pick is Samoa Joe.
Braden?
I have a few honorable mentions. It goes to Becky Lynch. Every time she has that smug look and has the microphone, I already have to listen into her. Shout out to Kenny Omega because he can cut promos in Japanese and English. But I chose shout out to Kenny Omega because he can cut promos in Japanese and English. But I chose this was really hard for me. This might have been the hardest one because I don't necessarily think of person that's good on the mic. I think of actual promos. I think of things.
WH Park.
Right. I think of things that were said on the microphone, like right when the reveal of Johnny Gargano, when he says, "I'm right here." That was something that was said. Or when Aleister Black said, "I'll absolve you of all your sins." That was something I liked. But I'm picking Ciampa simply because he's been the top heel in NXT. He screwed over his best friend, kept screwing him over, got the title, still was a dick. He does these videos where he's in the back of a truck and he'll cut promos like that. I just find he got the most heat out of everything. He got the most rise out of me too. So I'm picking Tommaso Ciampa.
And I think that there's something to be said there that as great as this Daniel Bryan character is, that's my concern, is that this guy is just too entertaining to be a top heel. Ciampa doesn't run that risk at all. He has run from anything that would be redeeming about him. Even when you could tell that the silent entrance was starting to get some buzz, changed it to
Right.
like some
Yeah.
shitty rock.
He's not even
theme.
in the video game. That's how big of a heel he is. Like he's just good at
It's
It
making
costing
me.
costs
himself
like
money.
60,000 points to buy the created one. Like we're not having him. I
That's
can't
a heel
say
in
that, man.
2000.
He's just a heel, man. Like he's a heel. I just like and I picked Ciampa as my social media because like he's a chirpy little fucker, isn't he? I love him.
Yeah,
He's all in
Exactly.
on the
Yeah.
character. Top three were The Miz at 15.6%. Second was Becky Lynch, 22.2%. And Samoa Joe won it with 24.7% of the votes. Daniel Bryan placed fifth.
Yeah.
All right, now we're getting into the big awards, starting off with Women's Match of the Year. We broke up Men's and Women's Match of the Year. This one, I'm curious if we get the clean sweep. I will start things off. I go back to Evolution, Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. And of course, this can include the most recent TLC show. But that to me was a very important match on that show. I thought they more than delivered. And that was everyone's match coming out of that night. And I think solidified that show that it's going to be a yearly tradition. And it was kind of the culmination that this Becky character was boiling and growing. And then that match, it just felt like it was a watershed moment for that division. And after all this time of looking at Charlotte and Sasha and Bayley, and here it was Becky, who looks to be the one at the forefront of all of it, who may be the one that's going to be 1A, even above Ronda Rousey. Like it's very conceivable that she is the best candidate, that if you're going to close a WrestleMania with a women's match, it has to involve Becky Lynch. And I think that her and Rousey, that should be it.
Becky needs the main event WrestleMania, and like you just said, has to have that end slot.
Like they have this like gift on their hands. You know, we know that they want to headline a show with Ronda Rousey probably at some point, but who's Ronda's opponent? And this is the perfect
Right,
person.
it's
Somebody who
so
might
hot.
even be hotter right now than Ronda Rousey.
Right.
So it's a no-brainer.
Which you
to
never
me.
could have guessed a year ago
Yeah.
that this would be the scenario. So that was my women's match of the year, and that this would be the scenario. That was my women's match of the year, and I just, for sheer importance, it was also an incredible match on that show. Braden.
Well, me and David, we watched a lovely show called the Mae Young Classic, and it had the glorious ladies of wrestling, essentially. But I did not pick a match that was part of that tournament. But that whole tournament is an honorable mention. Actually, Tony Storm and Miko Satomura. Oh my God, had to rewatch that match just to make sure. But you're right, John. Becky Lynch and Charlotte. That match, watching it at the time, I remember I was kind of not super into it, and then halfway through, I think we watched it together, David. I was like, this is so crazy. I love it. Becky Lynch, so great. That is my women's match of the year. Charlotte and Becky tore that thing down. On that card though, at Evolution, I wish is it Tony Storm and Io Shirai?
Yeah.
It was finals. I wish they got more time.
I think everyone thought that.
Because that would have been I was so into that, and it was done. And I was like, no.
I rewatched that last night, and I was like, yeah, this
that one would have been the one.
And then it just ended.
Why did they cut that? But Becky, Charlotte, that's it. I'm just saying it. They did it. The girls did it.
Davey?
So I went back and rewatched a load of the Mae Young Classic matches because I felt Becky Charlotte. I went back and rewatched a load of the Mae Young Classic matches because I felt Becky Charlotte would be a clean sweep, and I didn't want to go for it. And I especially watched a load of Mako Satomura. Her match against Killer Kelly was great.
Mercedes.
We watched the Mercedes Martinez match again the other day, and that's fantastic. And obviously the Tony Storm one. And then I put on Becky versus Charlotte last night, and just from the entrance, it's like, this is it. It's got that
big fight
CM
feel.
Punk, John Cena, Chicago feel. Like the crowd are just so into it, the big match feel, and you're like, yeah, this is the best match of the year.
Wai, your pick.
Yeah, honorable mention to Satomura and Storm. That was also my favorite match from the Mae Young Classic. I think Kairi Sane and Shayna Baszler have had a number of tremendous matches, but maybe none of them that really kind of clinched it in terms of, I guess, as grand of an importance and, maybe as epic of a feel as I would say Becky versus Charlotte at Evolution. It was a show where I think these two were called upon to really deliver a classic, and that they did. So that was also my match of the year.
Okay, I'm going to quickly just rattle through the top 10 finishers here, starting with number 10, which was the Women's Royal Rumble. 9 was Shayna Baszler, Kairi Sane from TakeOver War Games. followed after that with Meiko Satomura and Io Shirai from Sendai Girls. Miko Satomura versus Mercedes Martinez from the Mae Young Classic. Momo Watanabe versus Io Shirai from Stardom Queens Fest. Toni Storm versus Meiko Satomura from the Mae Young Classic. And then our top four. Four was Shayna Baszler, Kairi Sane from TakeOver Brooklyn. Third was Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair from the Survivor Series. Second was Asuka and Charlotte from WrestleMania. And number one, 71.2% of the vote, Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair from Evolution. So a wide array of choices there for women's match of the year, which naturally takes us to men's match of the year, a very, very, very deep category.
This is a controversial topic too. People always get heated about this.
Well, then we're going to put all of the heat on Wai to start things off.
Okay, no problem. You know, I don't even think. Okay, no problem. You know, I don't even think it's a tough argument, but 2018 could be better, the best year
It
of
is
pro
It's the
wrestling
best year
history.
of pro wrestling.
So
If you didn't even, to cut you off, if you didn't
Yeah.
even watch, like, if you're just a WWE guy, because I know
Yeah.
people listening are, you still had great stuff that happened.
Mhm.
Maybe, you know, maybe not WrestleMania, but other stuff, it was really good. But if you watch everything, then you had a real good year.
This to me was the toughest category, and this was a category that I kept in mind the entire year, thinking about
This is the
which
biggest
one I'm
category.
going to choose. So in a year where I think you can have so many great technical matches, for me, what ends up making the difference is my attachment to the characters and the storyline. And for me, the one I was most attached to this year was the Young Bucks versus the Golden Lovers from New Japan Strong Style Evolved in March 25th of 2018. This all, of course, came off the heels of Cody turning on Kenny Omega at the beginning of the year. It's a story that tore the Bullet Club apart, and with it, the Young Bucks being caught right in the middle. So this was a grudge that was not set up through baby faces or heel. Bucks being caught right in the middle. So this was a grudge that was not set up through baby faces or heels. It was a grudge that was set from a very relatable story of one man, Kenny Omega, having to choose between his best friends and his lover, his golden lover. And when you watch this match from the get-go, you have such a strong sense of friends not wanting to fight each other, but being forced in this situation where, you know, hey, not only are you going with that guy, but you think you're the best tag team in the world, well, we're going to jump to heavyweight and prove that we are the best. How could you say this to us? And then it starts off with all of them being really careful with one another, and then it just slowly escalates and escalates and escalates. Throughout the entire match, Matt Jackson could be the best actor in wrestling right now in terms of
Stand back.
the back injury,
Stand
but
back.
just him like internally struggling from like having to beat up his former best friend. I thought it was just
Come on, Kenny.
magical.
Come on.
Having to beat up his former best friend. I thought it was just
Come on, Kenny.
magical.
Come on, Kenny.
That moment where he was put up in the one-winged angel and like Kenny refuses to do it, so he lifts Kenny's arm up to do the one-winged angel for him. It's like, it was gut-wrenching. It nearly brought me to tears.
Right.
And I can't say that another match in 2018 has kind of come close to that for me. So that's my match of the year.
Braden, your
Wow.
pick.
Wow. I just watched that match last night.
That was also the best description of.
I know. I don't even want to go after that.
Yeah,
How am I supposed to
sorry.
go after that? What the? That tag team match is like the best storytelling in like wrestling maybe ever. That is my honorable mention because there's too many this year. That is the best. Fight me, don't at me or at me. Is that the best tag team match ever?
Again, it's all subjective,
Right.
You know,
Right. I think it is. I really like that match. I really, really love Andrade versus Cien Almas. Andrade Cien Almas versus Gargano from TakeOver Philly. I also have this crazy obsession. I think I watched it like 6 times in the week it came out, of Ospreay versus Villain. It was their
Is this the
5-star
one where
match.
he injured his neck?
Yeah, the Spanish
before
Fly.
WrestleMania.
Man, this match is crazy. Like, no wonder you got injured in it. You did some crazy stuff, but the storytelling leading up to that was great. But then you had Kenny and so many
sounds like he's still
guys.
making his choice
This
right
was
now.
so hard, but
I gave you 3 weeks to
I
make your
know,
choice.
guys. I'm gonna go really left field simply because of a connection that I have. I went to Wrestle Kingdom 12 in Tokyo because I needed to see my favorite wrestler when I was a kid growing up, Chris Jericho, versus my favorite wrestler now, Kenny Omega. And in my opinion, they delivered. That match blew me away from Jericho being a dick, attacking Red Shoes' kid, and just everything in it. The no DQ stuff. I know people hate on the ref counts and all that. I just really, I thought that was Jericho's best match ever that he's ever put on. it had so many eyes that had never looked at that product ever, and it was because of this match. So when people look at wrestling history, they'll look at that and be like, hey, remember when Jericho like jumped over there and did that match? That was crazy. That was cool. That was this match in the Tokyo Dome. I picked Jericho versus Kenny.
Yeah, this category is so deep. Just a few that came to mind for me as honorable mentions: Kenny Omega and Tomohiro Ishii from the G1 Climax.
God.
I was at a wedding that day, and we had like this break in between before the reception part, and I'm at my wife's parents' place, and I just pull up my laptop to watch this, and I'm just like unbelievable
What a scene.
watching this this match. I'm like, oh my god, this is one of the best matches I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then maybe eclipsed by the final with Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi. In terms of a story, like Okada and Tanahashi is maybe my favorite feud I've ever seen, and that Dontaku match where Okada surpassed the streak and beat Tanahashi, that was my favorite of their 3 matches this year. But number 1 was Okada and Omega from Dominion. I mean, to me, that was just, for what they came in with in terms of an expectation level, it was damn near impossible that they were going to be able to eclipse that. And they did, with just a 90-minute classic that every fall was different from the last one. They played off the whole, like, it's a movie if you watch all of these matches between the two together. And it was the coronation of Kenny Omega and matches between the two together. And it was the coronation of Kenny Omega, and just unlike a 2 out of 3 falls match where it was like every fall was a journey toward the end. And I think easily one of the best matches of all time. And when you have people like Dave Meltzer saying it is the best match he has ever seen, that's quite the authority to put such a label on a match. So Okada Omega from Dominion was my choice. And we build up to Davie. Did take over Philadelphia, run the gamut of these 12 months and make it to the end.
Come on, of course it did.
It did.
Run the gamut of these 12 months and make it to the end.
Come on, of course it did.
It did.
Of course it did.
And I've watched some matches that people have hyped up to me this week. I've watched a lot of Volta. So Volta versus Jordan Devlin,
Great match
from OTT. It's fucking fantastic.
That's an incredible match.
That match is awesome. The Volta bait match from Wembley was great.
True, yeah.
On your recommendation, listening to your show the other day, the tag match between Golden Lovers and Osprey and
Kenny.
Tanahashi
That
was fucking awesome.
There's years that would have been hands down match of the year.
Yeah. Ishii versus Kenny is my second.
I think
match
we watched that
here.
match the most this year. No, maybe not you and
Not
I.
quite. It's so we have this joke that
You listen to
we've
Up Next
said
every
about
week.
before. Like Gargano and Almas is my match where people come over and I'm like, hey, you want to watch? It's my vetting system. I'm like, do I want to spend more time with you? And I put on Gargano versus Almas, and
David shows this match to girls, and that's how he gets.
well,
into,
it's
like,
actually I
wrestling.
showed Ishii Kenny to my girlfriend, and like she's still with me, so maybe that's the match I
Right,
should pick.
Switch it.
But no, Gargano versus Almas, take over Philly. I was there. It's just everything about it's fantastic, and I think watching it on TV as well, Mauro adds so much to this match. You watch this match, and from his storytelling, you think Johnny's going to win this. So I put it on. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I put it on earlier. And one of the first things Mauro says is Johnny Gargano's dad can't be here today because he's recovering from quadruple heart surgery. Johnny Gargano's dad can't be here today because he's recovering from quadruple heart surgery. And you're like, this guy can't lose. This guy can't lose. His dad's recovering from heart surgery. And it's saying he's 0-2 against Andrade Cien Almas. It's
Right.
like, well, he's got to win this one. All of that adding to the match. They start in this like just very traditional like chain wrestling style. Then it goes like way more into like a lucha style. Then they just go pure strong style, slapping and hitting the shit out of each other. And then you have Zelina Vega and Candice LeRae get involved. And it feels very WWE. Like that's the WWE stuff, all the shenanigans from the outside. And I think actually Almas winning makes this better for me because it's not expected, but you don't care because you just saw a great match. And there's this point in the match where, and you can pinpoint it exactly when you're watching it, where the crowd kind of go silent and then erupt because they're watching, enjoying, and then they go, fuck, this is the best thing I've ever seen, and just get up, and it's no bullshit chance of this is wrestling or whatever. It's just cheering, it's just noise, and that's when you know it's good.
That match
they
was-
can't even think about a witty chance. No. It's just raw.
I mean,
It's
you
the
were
best.
you were at that one, but even watching that on TV, I think I watched it with John, and then John was like, "I think that's the best match NXT's put on ever," and I was like, "Yeah, John, I think you're probably right." Even to this day, I think Almas Gargano might be my favorite NXT match purely, but that
And
match is great.
Look, what's been the dominant story this entire year is Johnny Gargano's obsession with the title, and this match kind of kicks all of that off, and you're behind this guy's quest for this title, and it's all started with that, and it's carried throughout the whole main event scene this year has been around this guy who's now gone to this darkness to try and get this title, and it all starts here. It's been the year-long story, and you had such an incredible start to this journey that people wanted to follow him on. Sorry, did we get everyone's picks?
Wow.
Yes, we did,
All
except
right.
for the audience.
The listener picks. Okay, there's a big log jam for number 10. So number 9 was Almas Gargano from TakeOver Brooklyn. Number 8, Walter and PCO from Spring Break. Number 7 was Adam Cole and Ricochet from TakeOver Brooklyn. Number 6, Black and Gargano from TakeOver War Games 2. Number 5, Ishii Omega from the G1 Day 14. I've counted this wrong. Let's just go, we're going in ascending order here.
Sure.
Followed by Tomohiro Ishii versus Kenny Omega, Tanahashi Ibushi, the 6-way ladder match, and then our top 3 are number 3, Gargano and Ciampa from TakeOver New Orleans. Number 2 was Almas Gargano from TakeOver Philadelphia, and number 1, 33.8% of the votes for Okada Omega from Dominion. This list is so long of votes we got for different matches of the year. A very, very deep category. I would say the deepest of all of them. Best feud of 2018. Mine was Kazuchika Okada and Hiroshi Tanahashi. I thought that this feud should not be revisited. I thought this is like a perfect feud. You don't have to touch it again, but Gedo found a way to top it this year with Okada surpassing Tanahashi's reign by beating him at Tontaku. Then you had their meeting in the G1, followed by Tanahashi, who's won the G1, defending his briefcase and beating Okada to get one more main event at Wrestle Kingdom. I just thought it was my top feud of 2008. Wrestle Kingdom. I just thought it was my top feud of 2018. Let's go to Wai.
My favorite feud of the year was Gargano versus Ciampa from NXT. I thought it was a feud, I think, like Okada versus Tanahashi, that built on several years of a relationship between the two. But I felt like this year was when they really kind of took it to a different level in terms of ambitious storytelling between all the matches that they had. It was a story of, a guy being obsessed with the championship belt and then always being unable to win it because of one man, and then that one man ends up winning the belt because of that dude's own mistakes. What does that do to the hero of the story? It turns the hero into a villain, except a villain who refuses to admit it himself. I thought it was, again, incredibly ambitious, and they pulled off every beat of it, even when they were hit with a curveball with Aleister Black getting injured, turning that somehow into a wonderful stopgap in their story. So that was my feud of the year.
Braden?
I mimic what Wai said. I also choose Gargano and Ciampa, the feud where the original attack, where the logo was already up and the logo is taken down.
That was so smart.
That was a year ago or so, right? That was last year.
It was Wargame.
Yeah.
No, before that.
Exactly.
Chicago.
So
Yeah,
think
that was
of
Chicago.
think of how long that has happened, that turn. And now we're
That
still
was like
talking
May
about
of 2017, if I'm correct.
So the logo has come and gone many times in this feud, because they have done it again where they bring the logo up and then they attack.
It's the post credits.
Yeah, it's great. They even topped it where there was an NXT episode where Gargano. They even topped it where there was an NXT episode where Gargano has finally won and everything is back to normal, and he's like, yeah, it's great. And then he still gets it. They still got you with a secret attack. There was one where Gargano is Ciampa attacked someone when it was off camera, and it's like there's so many different things here where they were just trying to really show you. And Wade kind of talked about how the hatred between these guys. The storyline has gone so far that I will not rest until I see it come full circle, because it needs to. It's like something in a series of movies where you're good and you're bad, and Something about these two are really great together. I thought everything they've done was fantastic watching wise. Like everything on NXT, their matches were fantastic. The promos, the video packages, the calling each other out. Gargano turning heel. He'll eventually turn back. It'll be fine. I just think this feud is like epic in wrestling history.
Davey, are you with them?
Yeah, they've said everything I need to say. But I mean,
sorry.
you can even go as far back as the Cruiserweight Classic. With
Sure, of course.
Because there was tension building there, and then they
When
had
were
their
tag
match, and they
teaming.
were mates again, and then tagging. It's just been the best, one of the best feuds I've ever seen.
We might, yeah, it is.
And
we might even talk.
It's just been the best, one of the best feuds I've ever seen.
We might, yeah, it is.
And
we might even talk about it next year as being.
Well, I feel like because
They
Gargano
could both be on the main roster next year, and you may have a very different opinion.
God damn it.
Gargano has to turn back eventually, but they
He will.
can't rush that. So I'm like, if this is a book of like 30 chapters, I feel they're at like chapter 22 right now.
Yeah.
They've still got a way to go before they finish this. It's by far my favorite.
The top three from our listeners. Number 3 was Cody versus Kenny Omega. Number 2 was Becky Lynch and Charlotte. But number 1 by a significant margin, 59.9% of the votes, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Next category is best promotion. And I guess that, well, I'm curious where you guys go here. Let's start with Braden.
I'm not a WWE guy anymore. I don't watch Raw. I don't watch SmackDown. Just listen to you guys talk about it. No, I have to say NXT because I do a show about it, but honorable mention goes to New Japan Pro Wrestling.
See, this is a weird one
Because I feel NXT is WWE.
I know
Yeah.
it's not fair.
It's like you're not picking Raw or SmackDown.
Right, definitely not picking those.
But in terms of like a tone of product, it is significantly different.
It's different, so I can pick NXT. I picked NXT as my favorite wrestling show, so I very well could just pick New Japan to be not WWE because they've done some things this year that have been crazy. The past few years for New Japan, I'm sure have just came out of nowhere for them. It's just been crazy. But like I'm gonna treat NXT as its own promotion, and I'm gonna pick it because we've had such great TV matches, like a 3-way with Ricochet, Dunn, and Cole, the tag match with Mustache Mountain. Like everything in NXT is different than the main roster. We just picked a feud of the year. That was 2 guys from there. Like everything seems different, and it's an hour show. The promotion itself, it doesn't feel like a promotion, but I'm gonna say it is.
I think that the differentiation, though, is that if this were its separate thing, they wouldn't have access to this talent. It would not be making money. And it would be viewed very differently because this would not be a business success
Sure.
if not for the overseeing of the WWE, where its chief function is not to be profitable. It is to get
Right.
talent ready for the main roster.
Yeah.
So it's got special rules attached to it as well. Wai, your pick.
Yeah, again, it was a tough one because it was a toss-up between those two, and depending on how you define this particular category. I think I'm still making up my mind right now, but this particular category. I think I'm still making up my mind right now, but for me, after what you just said,
It's okay. I switched one right off the
right
off the top of my head.
Okay, I think it has to be New Japan Pro Wrestling, simply in terms of amount of output. You know, NXT certainly has been batting 1,000 in terms of those takeovers, but we only get one of those once every few months. Whereas I think New Japan, for even the most, you know, usually the average New Japan show offers a very consistent level of high quality wrestling, storytelling that isn't so insulting to the fans. I don't think this has been their best year, but I still think they are the best promotion of 2018.
Davey?
Yeah, it's how you define it, but I went for NXT. I think New Japan is fantastic, but am I tuning in to watch it every week? No, I don't. I try and watch all the big shows. I watched all the G1, I watched Dominion, Tokyo Dome, but I don't watch every month. I still watch WWE every month. So kind of got to go WWE NXT because it does have me tuning in every week.
I did go with New Japan Pro Wrestling, not only because of the quality of wrestling this year, but the business success that they had. I mean, coming back to Long Beach the way they did just a few weeks out from WrestleMania, selling out without a problem. They did run they probably do have to change their approach to running the US market where you can't announce matches till such a short window before. Still did 7,000 people at the Cow Palace with that formula as well. The G1 drew very successful. The recent tag league did tremendous business, and the company is doing very, very well financially at the moment. And I think the deepest, like if you're going through match of the year contenders, it's so heavily concentrated from this company that I think put out some of their best shows this past year. So that was my choice. The top, let's include the top 5 because they're interesting. 5th was Game Changer Wrestling, which I think has a lot of great buzz attached to them. Number 4 was Ring of Honor. 3 was WWE. Number 2, NXT. And number 1, New Japan Pro Wrestling with 48.2% of the vote. And to compare, NXT was 37.4%. So that got the lion's share, pardon the pun, of the votes. Best tag team. I will start this one off. It is an NXT choice. I chose the Undisputed Era. Any combination of them. I thought that the tag division in NXT was so incredible this year. That tag division, whether you were including Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch,
Right.
Mustache Mountain, it was whether Pete Dunne, where he was brought into the mix of the different tag matches as well. I just thought that they had such a phenomenal year, but the Undisputed Era, to me, they were the constant that show is built around. I think if you put the Undisputed Era onto Raw tomorrow, you'd have a shield on your hands that if they were protected, they could be the stars of Raw tomorrow. And that only takes one person to make that decision that we're going with these 4 guys to be on the main roster. I just thought they had such an excellent year. And I think that if you were to look 5 years ago at these guys having success in the WWE, you would see it with Adam Cole, but I don't think anyone would have assumed Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong would be in these positions in a WWE run company that NXT is. So Undisputed Era, but I think there are plenty of quality choices you can make this year for Tag Team of the Year. Davie.
I found this one tough. I ended up going for the Young Bucks. I don't think kind of they've had... where am I going with this? I just think they're still the best in the world. They're so fluid together. I think they did evolve this year. They added a lot more.
They're the most valuable tag team in the world.
Completely. I mean, they're responsible for All In. I think there's their money. They're the top tag team in the world still for me. There's their money. They're the top tag team in the world still for me. I think their match against Golden Lovers was fantastic. I think Undisputed Era and a lot of the NXT guys have had fantastic tag team matches this year. But as a unit who are always going together, when you think of tag teams, I think of these guys.
Wait.
My choice for best tag team of 2018 was the Golden Lovers. To me,
they all different choices.
They are the team that made me the most excited about tag team wrestling in 2018. You have 2 of the best wrestlers in the world reforming together after several years apart. I thought the story and the moment of them finally catching up with one another and embracing was one of my top moments of 2018. And they were having, they're still having show-stealing performances every time the 2 of them tag together. You couple this with the kind of not so subtle overtones of a serious romance taking place between the 2. I thought it completely, at least, is moving in towards a direction that is helping break down barriers in a traditionally art form that doesn't treat homosexual relationships very well. So I think they are
called mind games that are going on.
Yeah, not so much. So I feel like they bring a great deal of social change to professional wrestling. And for that reason, they are my favorite tag team of 2018.
Braden?
That was so well spoken because it's true. You mentioned that was your match of the year was the Young Bucks and the Golden Lovers because like just everything that the moment where Coda and Kenny got back together this year, it was like just everything that the moment where Coda and Kenny got back together this year, it was like it made me want to cry almost watching. Yeah, it was
this
great.
Was a story taking place in Japan.
Yeah,
you know who I feel in terms of that subject is not as maybe forward thinking as many other countries.
It was so. You are not wearing your Golden Lovers hat, by the way, which I'm very upset by. I would say that, yeah, post hats. I also pick the Young Bucks. I have to give your Golden Lovers a shout out, but they were in that match, and those guys are the number one. They had All In. You could have told me Kenny Omega, Okada, Villain were going to be on that card, but the fact that it was like theirs made me want to go to it because I've seen them in a crowd of like 100 people. I've seen them now in the Tokyo Dome where they filled that place. Like everything they've been doing is fantastic. I'd say other than the Golden Lovers match, they've had like a crazy year. I couldn't pick anything else other than that match, but then that one is like the one for me. Like if I had to show someone a Young Bucks match, that would be instantly the one because it's just so mesmerizing.
It must be so hard to become friends.
The one because it's just so mesmerizing.
It must be so hard to become friends with you two because you just have a stack of like matches that we have to put you through the vetting process.
It's like just this one.
What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Huh?
That's us. That's what we do.
That's why I found it hard picking them though, because I could only think of that match, and I'm going through all my other picks. I'm like, oh, they had that match, that match, and then but they're just really fucking good.
My favorite thing to do is find a friend of mine who doesn't like wrestling, and then I say, okay, can I show you something? I'll roll a nice big fat one, we'll smoke it, and then we'll watch some Japanese wrestling. Most people look at you like you're crazy, and then they watch it and they go, that's fucking nuts. Who is Kenny Omega? And is he really injured? What happened to his leg? Is he going to survive? Who's Kota Ibushi? I'm not lying to you. Many of my friends do not know anyone in WWE other than John Cena and The Rock. But they're asking me, hey, that Will Ospreay in WWE other than John Cena and The Rock. But they're asking me, hey, that Will Ospreay, is he injured? Because his neck looked like it really got hurt in that Spanish fly
I saw his
thing.
Twitter account.
Yeah, they're like, I'm like, you don't even follow this, but you're into the weird Japanese stuff, and it's because of the weird crossover that these guys, I'm gonna say, being the elite guys, they bring the interest there, and then people stay. So like I said, all the eyes were on Jericho and Kenny, but I could imagine all these people tuning in and then seeing like Suzuki shave his head, and you're like, what is this? This is crazy. I need to watch more of this. And I don't know how we got on this, but the Young Bucks, the best tag team of the year.
Well, guys, the listeners have spoken. Number 3, the Golden Lovers. Number 2, the Undisputed Era.
Wow.
And number 1, 38.4%, the Young Bucks.
Too sweet.
So there you go. The
Beautiful.
top 3 tag teams.
Club
Number 4 was the Usos, which I think that's a pretty tough argument to
No,
make.
they're great. Dream matches.
Not this year.
Oh,
They were barely on TV this year. 2017, I think they're neck and neck with the Young Bucks if you want to call
that's
tag
a
team
dream
of the year,
match
but
right there.
I thought this year was a very big disappointing year for them, and through no fault of their own. Okay, final 3 here. Starting off, we have
final 4 because of the last.
I think
well.
final
No, we
3,
have the
including the last.
Oh,
one.
okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're right.
best female wrestler. Starting off with Davie.
So I was thinking Becky Lynch, but then I was thinking that's only from SummerSlam onwards. That's only half the year.
True.
And really, it's only one match, 2 matches, that TLC match. Unfortunately, I don't watch the women's independent scene, so I can only go by WWE. So I'm going to go to the Mae Young Classic and who I felt had the best tournament. And I'm going to go to the Mae Young Classic and who I felt had the best tournament and was someone I'd never heard of before and made me want to watch more of them. And that's Meiko Satomura. I thought she was the star of that whole tournament. As I mentioned earlier, her matches against Killer Kelly, Mercedes Martinez, and Toni Storm were all really, really fucking good. And each one topped the last one. And yeah, I definitely want to check out more of her. So she's my female wrestler of the year.
Braden?
My honorable mention goes to someone in the Mae Young Classic, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm madly in love with her. Toni Storm is fantastic. I know David is, it makes fun of me because he doesn't see what I like about Toni Storm. You don't like her. And I think she's on her way to be maybe a giant star in the world of WWE. But I picked way to be maybe a giant star in the world of WWE. But I picked Becky Lynch simply because when she did the original turn, it was supposed to be that she was the bad guy and everyone didn't really like that. But as soon as I went on Twitter, I was not watching Raw or SmackDown, whatever it was that week. And I went on my phone and I opened up to see what I was missing. And I saw this picture, Becky Lynch with blood all over her face. And instantly I stopped what I was doing. And I quickly had to watch. What the hell did I just miss? Why is Becky Lynch bleeding? And then I watched that and I was like, holy shit, she's like Stone Cold Steve Austin. What the? Like, this is crazy. I think I stayed up just like on my phone in bed for like, it's crazy. I think I stayed up just like on my phone in bed for like an hour, reading people's tweets, going on Twitter, interacting with people simply over Becky Lynch and how she just became a success in like by getting punched in the face, essentially. So yeah, it wasn't all the way through, but I'm picking Becky Lynch because just from that one moment, you have become a giant, giant star.
Yeah, I think that ultimately 2019, she's maybe the most intriguing WWE performer to see what what business impact does she now have? She feels like such a hot character, but as she was catching fire, like this fall, like she's just come back now, character, but as she was catching fire, like this fall, like she's just come back now. I'm very curious to see how is she positioned on house shows. Does she start to headline these house shows? And when tickets were going on sale in the fall for shows in the early part of 2019, are we going to see an increase now in business because of Becky Lynch? Because that's something we don't know of. Television numbers haven't gone through the roof with her yet, but 2019 could be a year that we see her become that drawing star, as well as someone that you can just see all the makings of someone that can be a huge difference maker for the company. I chose Becky Lynch. Yes, it was half the year, but I just thought it was such a big part of WWE this year. And, you know, for so long, they were looking for to try and get the women into these prominent spots. But now there is someone that there's not even the argument against it now. When you look at TLC this past Sunday, there was only one choice to put on last. It is like this woman has fully made this women's division the main event division. It's and I put a large part of it on her shoulders and on Ronda Rousey as well. So Becky Lynch was my choice, and Wai.
Very well said by all of you. I think from a technical standpoint, Meiko Satomura was the best women's wrestler I watched this year from the Mae Young Classic. But I have to agree with these two men. I think from just it's rare that I think we have a female wrestler who is not just the top star in her division, but the top star of the entire WWE. Female wrestler who is not just the top star in her division, but the top star of the entire WWE. She is Stone Cold Steve Austin in 1998. It's Becky Lynch.
Best male wrestler. I'll start this one off. I think you could make solid arguments for Kenny Omega. I think you could make solid arguments for Kenny Omega, for Tomohiro Ishii, Will Ospreay. In the end, I chose Hiroshi Tanahashi, and it wasn't that I think he had the most classic matches this year, but the 3 Okada matches, the G1 final with Ibushi, the tag we just talked about from last weekend with Ospreay against the Golden Lovers. And it was the story of Hiroshi Tanahashi. I think that had a big impact, the Golden Lovers. And it was the story of Hiroshi Tanahashi. I think that had a big impact on the G1 drawing well. I think him tagging up with Okada for the second leg of the Tag League tournament, that was a very big help for the business of the Tag League tour. And he's going to headline Wrestle Kingdom, which has got off to a tremendous start. And I think that he's just had this great story throughout the year. And I think it's many different factors that you look at for Wrestler of the Year. He had the great matches. He drew in a big position. And also, this was someone that years ago, I think I went 3 years in a row voting for him. And then there came a year where I just realized he's not at that level anymore. And I'm probably never going to vote for this guy for Wrestler of the Year again. And I thought he did it this year. And that was remarkable considering all the injuries he's had. He has adapted his style, and his storytelling is still at the absolute top. And I cannot wait for this match with Kenny Omega that I think will be just a masterpiece at the Tokyo Dome. Let's go to Davie.
I went for Johnny
Tokyo Dome. Let's go to Davie.
I went for Johnny Gargano. I think he's had a huge year in NXT. His matches against Ciampa were fantastic. His match against Almas, obviously, not just the one at that takeover, but his TV matches as well. The way he's changed his character going into that match against Black, which was arguably the best match that night. He's just been consistent. His promos are believable, whether he's a heel or a babyface. His motivations are believable. He's flawless in the ring and has had the most. He's flawless in the ring and has had the most compelling story of the year. So Johnny Gargano is my Wrestler of the Year.
Braden.
My honorable mentions is a crazy long list. You said some of them. Will Ospreay. I feel like he was not talking.
I nearly chose him.
Honestly, he's had some crazy matches. The 4-way at Wrestle Kingdom holds a place in my heart. The crowd, in Japan, the crowd is so quiet most of the time until it gets to that one match that makes them go batshit crazy. And that 4-way, all of a sudden, this girl beside me pulls out her Daryl and is losing her shit when Will Ospreay attacks Takahashi. That's another guy who should be on my list. Guy does a running drop kick from one end of an arena to the other. He you know, crazy. He did make my honorable mentions, but the number one honorable mention is Johnny Gargano. I damn near picked him because I watch NXT all the time, and just like Davey said, he's great, but he's not Kenny Omega, and Kenny Omega is my wrestler of the year. Guy said he's great, but he's not Kenny Omega, and Kenny Omega is my wrestler of the year. Guy started out wrestling Jericho, stole wrestling from me. Instantly, that match changed everything for me. I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm good. I can check out. Then he had what maybe some people call the greatest wrestling match ever. You can decide if that's true or not, against Okada at Dominion. And then if that wasn't enough for you, he wrestled Pentagon in Chicago at All In. Damn near stole the show for me there. And then I had the tag match with the Bucks and Kota Ibushi. Oh, wait, he also fought Kota Ibushi, which could have been match of the year. Like everything Kota Ibushi. Oh, wait, he also fought Kota Ibushi, which could have been match of the year. Like everything Kenny Omega touches turns to gold. And he's a golden lover. So
he also drew that like 6-figure gate for Northeast Wrestling Phoenix,
right?
Back in October.
Yeah,
and
I wanted
Phoenix
to go to that.
is a guy that I think should be on people's list as
Sure.
well as someone to consider. He had an incredible year.
I just when you described Okada Kenny as a movie earlier talking right now, that's what I felt like that every time the video package with you lost everything. Well, you have to gain it. Well, what will it cost? Everything. And like that alone made me go, oh, goosebumps. So Kenny Omega, wrestler of the year.
Way.
My choice echoes Braden's. It was also Kenny Omega. He is a man who I find this to be a really interesting time right now because he's certainly facing a lot of criticism from diehard New Japan fans for having a run with the title that is certainly not anywhere up to par from what was set by Kazuchika Okada, and I completely understand those criticisms. That said, though, you look at his body of work in 2018, between all the matches that you just mentioned, you know, the CEO show that he put on, you know, even as late as right now, having that golden look he put on, you know, even as late as right now, having that golden lovers match against Tanahashi and Ospreay, to his performances in the G1 where he always delivered. So to me, he is the best wrestler of 2018.
I forgot to get to the listener's pick for best female wrestler. That was Becky Lynch, 71.5% of the votes, followed by Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. Best male wrestler from our listeners, number 3 was Seth Rollins with 12.9%. Johnny Gargano was number 2 with 18.6%. And number 1, Kenny Omega, 22.9%. And our final category is biggest story of 2018, and we send it back to Wai.
Okay, yeah, my biggest story of the year. Certainly, I respect the scope of the WWE's landmark TV deals, but I consider it more of a story with long-reaching effects rather than, you know, something that we're feeling right now. Kind of like global warming. You know, it's a big story. I don't think anything else matters but global warming in a few years, but it's something I have to worry about at another time. I thought the biggest story for me in I thought the biggest story for 2018 for me was WWE Crown Jewel. The WWE's involvement in Saudi Arabia in general, especially amidst one of the most obvious assassinations by a government. To me, it was a story that reached the biggest mainstream attention for professional wrestling in 2018, with specials from John Oliver and numerous news articles from various sources. That was my pick for biggest story of 2018.
Braden.
I mean, realistically, that one that's a big one. That's a doozy. I'm gonna pick one because y'all know, being like a wrestling fan and someone, and on all your friends or family, they all know you as the guy who likes wrestling. So whenever something in the news happens and it involves wrestling, they go to you about wrestling. So whenever something in the news happens and it involves wrestling, they go to you about it. Well, I don't know how many fucking people came up to me this year being like, so what's the deal with Ronda Rousey? So she's not fighting for real anymore? So she's doing it like she's fighting fake now? Like, what's up with that? Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania is just, I don't know, Ronda Rousey in WWE in a match, whatever you want to call it, just Ronda Rousey in WWE. I still hear people in public talking about this. Well, yeah, she's washed up. She's fake. She does fake shit now. That's still people talking about it. I don't know what the draw is. Like, does Ronda Rousey actually in make numbers go up for WWE? Probably. I don't know. But what I'm saying is I always, to this day, maybe almost a year later, am hearing people talk about, some people are like, what? She's in WWE. I need to watch that. I'll watch that. I would watch that. It's like so strange because I myself is not a huge MMA fan, but I watched her first fight. I watched all of her fights. And then when she came to WWE, it didn't really care for me. All of her fights. And then when she came to WWE, it didn't really care for me. But then noticing everyone else talking about it makes it so much stranger.
I would say it's that plus also the ability, like her ability to actually live up to the
She's
billing.
great.
Like in
She
ring,
lived
she
up,
has
yeah.
been fantastic.
I don't think
Yeah.
anyone expected this level of involvement throughout the year.
Right.
Like beyond WrestleMania, like how sporadic would she be around? She's been there pretty much every week. And like, think of where the Raw numbers would be without her. I think that's, you know, a
She
feather
is
in
Kurt
her cap
Angle
too.
to me.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
is. Like, I just feel like even my mom is like, oh, I'm watching CP24 and they're talking about Ronda Rousey. Like, who is that? I'm like, she's a fighter. She wrestles now. Oh, but they're talking about Ronda Rousey. Like, who is that? I'm like, she's a fighter. She wrestles now. Oh, but she's a real fighter. Well, no, well, she was, but like I did that so many times this year where I just feel like it was unavoidable. To this day, Joanna just lost at UFC. Someone literally made this joke. I guess she'll be talking to Triple H soon. Then I'm like, that's because of that.
She'd be awesome.
Yeah,
actually.
she would
She'd
be.
a great
What
person.
would her new last name be?
I don't even know her last name. I can't say it.
Young J-Check. Davie, your biggest story of 2018 was?
Mine was a feel-good one. I originally put Roman Reigns' leukemia, and then I thought it's best of 2018. I can't say a guy
big
having
story.
leukemia.
I mean, this is-
best of 2018. I can't say a
It's a
guy
big
having
story.
leukemia.
I mean, this is just-
It's a big story. Yeah, but I wanted a feel-good moment, and it's Daniel Bryan returning.
Wow.
My very first WWE event was watching Daniel Bryan win the title at WrestleMania 30. One of the best feel-good moments at WrestleMania in years. And him having to retire without wanting to retire, all those injuries, all the things he went through to come back. And that day when it was announced and the internet blew up, it's rare you get those actual genuine feel-good moments in wrestling, especially in WWE, which has all its shit with fucking Saudi Arabia and stuff. To just have a genuinely nice moment, and then his speech, thanking Brie and everything, brought me to tears. So, and he's one of my favorites. So having Daniel Bryan back wrestling and then seeing that match against Brock, which I loved, that was actually a real favorite of mine this year because I felt that's the Daniel Bryan we've been missing, that we haven't had since his return. And we had that against Brock. We've had that against AJ. So Daniel Bryan coming back.
I'm concerned about global warming in the here and now. I went with the WWE's television rights deals with the USA Network and Fox. I don't think the most optimistic analyst could have predicted that the WWE would score so big with their renewals this year and the effect it had on the stock price. The stock is now trading at about $74. When it was like, if you were in on the WWE stock a year ago, it's unfathomable to see what it has, even leveling off the level it is at. And this company is so insulated now from any outside forces with these 5-year television deals that are going to pay them each, $205 million from Fox, who made a conscious effort that in this contract year, we are going with the WWE rather than the UFC. And that ties into Braden's story of how much did Ronda Rousey somewhat influence that here, this is the hot brand that we are going with. It's WWE and not UFC. And I think that's a huge thing. The WWE is going to be on the main Fox network in 2019. And there's going to be high expectations for them to be able to deliver an audience on Friday nights. And I think high expectations for them to be able to deliver an audience on Friday nights. And I think it really solidifies where the WWE is when cable viewership is going down. The WWE is looked upon as a really key property, and that was pretty much emphasized this year when they were going head to head with the UFC for rights, and they came out ahead of the UFC, who still got a really strong deal with ESPN. But the WWE is going to have a really strong deal with ESPN. But the WWE is going to have more television presence than the UFC will in these new deals when they go into effect. So I just think it was so huge for this company because they're in just a different stratosphere now with these contracts as protection for them. That wraps up all of the awards, but we do have the listener choices, yes, for biggest story. So I'll read some of these before we get to the top 3. Some of the ones that stand out here. The Madison Square Garden sellout with Ring of Honor and New Japan, the Elite contract speculation, the rise of Becky Lynch, All Elite Wrestling, which kind of ties into the Elite contract stuff, Ronda Rousey coming in, Daniel Bryan being cleared, the Fox deal with WWE. Number 3 was Roman Reigns' leukemia diagnosis. Number 2, the All In announcement, sellout, and the show itself. And number 1, 20.5% voted for the WWE Crown Jewel controversy as the biggest story of 2018, which, I mean, that was enormous. I think, just the most disgusting promotional tactic that you could envision of just everything together of what was produced.
It's a great segue for next week's show.
Next week, are you guys going to be able to return as our returning champions, reassembling the panel next week?
Of course.
Absolutely.
You've gotten through stage 1 of the post 1 climax, and next week will be our worst of 2018 show.
The post 1
it's late, Braden.
I want that on a shirt.
We are almost 2 hours deep into the show at this point. Next week is the worst of show. It will be out Friday, December the 28th. This week is the worst of show. It will be out Friday, December the 28th. So you can tune into that. That will, again, be a free show for everybody as we will go through the worst and get through probably a lot of angst that this year provided. But for the last 2 hours, you got all the positivity out. There was a lot to like from 2018. As
Best year ever.
These past 2 hours displayed. But next week, trust me, we will find plenty to complain about that 2018 brought us as well. So first of all, I want to thank you guys very much. I also want to give everyone some homework for next week because every year we do a game called Likely, Unlikely. And I have gone and looked at last year's likely and unlikelies that Wai and I did. So for next week, we'll read them. But I want each of you to come up with 5 scenarios for 2019, and we'll read out our scenarios, and the panel will give either a likely or unlikely to that scenario occurring in 2019. And we'll go back and see how accurate Wai was, because some of them were incredible. Not because of whether he said likely or unlikely, but some of his qualifiers were stunning.
Really?
So that is the tease for next week's worst of 2018 show that we will go through those. And thank you to all of the people that voted. I think this is a really cool component to have attached to it, having the listener votes as well. And Chris Engler, once again, for tabulating all these results that I never would have been able to do on my own that I thought I could. And Chris, thankfully, was able to get this over to us.
Well, thank you guys for having us and always putting out great podcasts for a full year of post.
Yes.
We thank you guys too for doing the same.
Well,
Every Thursday.
All right. That's going to wrap it up. Thanks everybody for listening. More shows coming your way, including the Christmas show that will be out Monday, and catch Braden, Herrington, and Davie Portman every Thursday with Up Next. And you can subscribe to their every Thursday with Up Next. And you can subscribe to their own feed. Just go search for Up Next wherever you listen to your
you put up
podcast.
feedback?
I did not put up feedback. We were
All
supposed to put up a feedback. So up next,
We could quickly do that right now. But first, we got one of these.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Got
Look
some-
at that. Pop the champagne.
The best champagne glasses.
I feel
I
feel like it's Christmas time. It's the
Oh.
holidays. New Year's is coming. We just need to,
you welcome that.
All right.
I'll
All
pop
right.
this.
We're going to sign off. Thank you, everybody. Oh,
There's 5
The
there.
bartender just broke the glasses.
Oh no, I just
Man.
broke all of them.
Oh.
he broke all of them.
Oh.
Broke all of them?
That takes
He
talent
broke
right
all
there.
of them. That's another great segue for
Brady the
worst
Breaker.
Good
of-
night, everybody, from Post Office West.
Ahoy!
Oh yeah, we'll get this on.
Yeah, you got to get the sound in.
Whoa.
I don't know. It's got a cap
Just
first.
don't take my eye out.
No. I'll take this off as well.
Should have done this during the show.
I can't believe you broke.
No,
the
I fixed
glasses.
it. No,
Broke them all.
No,
Did
they're
you?
good.
Oh! Oh my goodness! Wonderful, wonderful. Happy New Year, everybody.
It was here for 2 hours. What?
How did that?
Oh goodness.
Yeah, you okay?
No, it's fine. We'll get.
Oh no, sorry.
Goodbye, everybody.
Check 'em out.